Good evening and welcome to November 10th, 2025 City Council Special Meeting. Tonight's meeting is being brought to you live using video teleconferencing provided by Zoom. Welcome to all and thank you for joining this evening. City Clerk Deanna, please, or Dean, will you please take the roll call?
Councilmember Benson.
Here.
Councilmember Watton.
Here.
Councilmember Holloway.
Here.
Councilmember Washington. Councilmember Cotton. Here. Councilmember Christensen. Councilmember Johnson.
All right. Councilmember Christian has requested to be excused from tonight's meeting. Is there a motion excusing Councilmember Johnson absence tonight?
So moved.
Is he gonna be gone all night?
Christensen.
Are
From
we
here,
just talking about the?
No, she'll be gone tonight.
Huh?
She'll be gone all night
Oh,
tonight.
Kara.
Kara.
Okay,
Oh, darn.
there needs to be a second.
I'll second it.
All right. All those are any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Kara's excused. Just as a matter of course, Councilmember Johnson and Councilmember Washington have said they will be a little bit late, but I will accept a motion to excuse their tardiness.
So moved.
Second.
Second, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, we will then move on. Da-da-da-da-da. I can stay on script. We now move to first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. May I have a motion to approve the special meeting agenda for tonight?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. There's a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. And the agenda is approved. Tonight we have a closed session pursuant to RCW 42.30.140.140.4B for the planning adoption of a strategy or position to be taken during the course of any collective bargaining proceedings or reviewing the proposals made in negotiations or proceedings. Those attending will be the city attorney, Dina Burke, city administrator, Mike Chambliss, finance director, Drew Bate, and Chief Bailey. Closed session is expected to last until 6 p.m. Where no action will be taken following the conclusion of the closed session and recording of the meeting will be paused. All right. All right, let's go to closed session. So if you'll pause the recording and we'll proceed on to closed session now. We now return from closed session. Our second item is the mid-biennial budget review and economic update. Finance Director Bote, will you introduce the item?
Thank you very much, Chair, and good evening, Council. Jimmy, do you mind promoting me to panelist if you can? Thank you. Thank you. Somehow I exited the meeting and now I need to get back into it. So just one second. And share my screen. All right, so good evening to you, council members. Tonight, we're going to be discussing the budget amendment, providing you with a summary, and then we're going to transition into a conversation around the financial forecast. And specifically, we're going to be looking at the governmental operating financial forecast for tonight. Just to kind of kick off with the budget amendment summary for you, the city is asking for several amendments related to the following. Includes the North Bend Police Services ILA dissolution, which includes the $240,000 payment to North Bend at the end of the March term of the agreement, as well as the closure of the North Bend Police Services Fund. In addition, as a part of this budget amendment, we're asking for an increase for liability and property insurance in order to make sure that we cover those expenses for this year. Additional budget for the workers' compensation insurance as well to cover those expenses for this year. Outside legal counsel, health insurance for the fire department, AED replacements, splash pad operations, public defender. There's also a couple more as well, including the utility fee transfer from the non-utilities capital fund to the utilities capital fund. We want to make sure that we true up for the utility rate study that council passed in May. We want to make sure that we account for the stormwater system plan improvements, or we need to complete that work. And so we've included a budget amendment for that. There's also some projects that we need to true up too. And so that includes the Eagle Lake Reservoir Project and Loan, the Water Reclamation Facility Phase 3, as well as the Business Park Lift Station that is, we're working on right now to support the Snoqualmie Valley Hospital extension. And so as a consequence of this, a lot of these are really true ups of decisions that have already been made or assumptions that did not necessarily come true. And so we want to make sure that we accommodate and appropriate for those things here. In addition, there's also a number of housekeeping items to match agenda bills the council has already passed, and we'll be going into those in more detail as we progress towards our agenda bill later tonight. In terms of just providing you with kind of a high levels,
Can I ask a
Yes.
question about, can you go back one slide?
yeah,
Splash pad operations.
yes.
Can you describe that one?
Yeah. So in essence, the city of Snoqualmie budgeted for the additional operating expenditures related to the splash pad. And that was, a consequence of when we put the project together, there's certain operating expenses that are relevant to the splash pad to keep it operating. Well, we have found that those expenses are actually higher than what we budgeted for as a part of the Parks and Street Maintenance functional classification that we have. And so we want to make sure that we appropriate fully for those expenses related to the splash pad operations, because otherwise the Streets and Parks Maintenance Division of the Parks and Public Works Department would have to find those dollars elsewhere in order to support that operation. So things like chlorine or other sort of supplies that are relevant to that was critical. In addition, there may have been, Mike, do you want to? And maybe Jana, if you want to come up too, because she knows more than I do.
The
on
water.
this. The water expenses?
Yeah.
All right. So in order to pay the city of Snoqualmie, well, the city of Snoqualmie provides water. That splash pad has required more water than we had potentially anticipated. And so as a consequence of that, because we're charging our Parks and Streets division more, because they're using more water overall, that's money that's actually going from our Parks and Streets division to the utilities here at the city overall. So we're expecting potentially more revenue, slightly, in the utilities overall, but there was more water expenses overall.
So the delta is just the amount of water being used?
Jana, do you want to?
Well, and Drew, will you be going over these tonight or?
Yeah, go into detail.
Okay.
We will. Yeah. In fact, if you want us to discuss when we go through them one by one, we can do that, or I can answer now. But basically we estimated it would cost about $7,000 to run. And it turns out that you bring people there, there's more water, there's more people using the restrooms. There's a lot of chemicals that are hard to estimate when you don't really know the exact system. And that number will likely change over the next 2 years as we just perfect our operations and find out what works the best for our system too. So it is, I think we estimated that it's going to cost about $20,000 a year to run, and we estimated it would cost about $7,000. So it's about $13,000 a year ongoing is our increase approximately.
All right. So as part of this budget amendment that we're proposing in our agenda bill later, just want to provide you with a summary, a high-level comparison summary between the adopted budget for 25 and 26 and the 25-26 amended budget. As a consequence of this budget amendment that we're proposing to council, we are proposing really a $16.1 million reduction. Now, that jumps out at me and it probably jumps out at you too, but I want to make sure that we kind of break that down between the transfers that move money between the separate funds, our internal service charges. That means basically internal service departments that are charging other departments for services. And then what I'm trying to get to through this chart is how much are we actually potentially going to spend on our capital expenses that will be leaving the city of Snoqualmie door and out to our consultants, vendors, construction companies, and so on, as well as those operating expenditures that are going to go into employee pockets or potentially out for supplies and services and so on. And so as a consequence of that, when you subtract out the transfers out and when you subtract out the internal service charges, what we find is our capital expenditures through this budget amendment will be decreasing 1.5%, and that our operating expenditures will be decreasing 6.6%. Overall, while the total appropriation is decreasing 9.3%, a lot of that is made up by the decrease in the transfers out and the decrease in the internal service charges. Now, why would the operating expenditures that we're budgeting for decrease 6.6%? Well, nearly 70% of that is related to the budget reduction for the North Bend Police Services. We know that we've got an ILA that's going to wrap up in March of this year. As a consequence of that, there's going to be 9 additional months of which we will not be paying for any of those expenses related to North Bend overall. So as a consequence of that, that's 6.6%, 70% of that is related to North Bend. The other component of that is the reduction in internal services to make up for the loss of the North Bend contract as well. And so part of that is coming primarily from the general fund, especially the administrative departments, but also it's coming from primarily IT as well as some of the other internal services that we have across the city. Just to give you a sense, I think overall of how much we spend per person here in the city, operationally overall, in 2025, the city expects to spend an estimated $2,080 operationally per person. When you subtract out the North Bend Police Services Fund and then divide that by the Snoqualmie population, that's basically gives you a rough sense of how much we're spending per capita here in Snoqualmie per person. So with that said, I know what's really important is to look at the position summary overall and how that's changing between the adopted budget to the amended budget. Overall, as a part of this budget amendment, we would decrease the number of positions from 120.3 as we incorporated into the adopted budget to 103.3 FTEs for the remainder of the 25-26 biennium. As a result, that is a reduction of 17 positions. The majority of those are made up of the reduction because the North Bend Police Services contract is going away. And so when we had budgeted for North Bend last year, we included 14.25 FTEs. With those positions that are currently vacant right now, the subtraction of those, we would lose those 14.25 positions. In addition to that, there's some other proposed changes that we're suggesting as a part of this budget amendment too. That includes a subtraction of a budget analyst position in the finance department, elimination of the communications assistant position, an elimination of the CD technician position, as well as the elimination of an IT systems engineer too. You'll note here that community development looks like they're dropping from 6 to 4 positions overall. Just want to make this clear that while one of those positions is the elimination of a CD technician position overall, we do have the communications, or sorry, not the communications, but the community liaison moving from community development to communications. So they're actually moving up into the administrative departments overall. In terms of the fire and emergency management that you see there, that kind of 0.10 FTE, that's related to the mental health professional. So when we broke out the mental health professional, it was 50% North Bend Police, 40% Snoqualmie Police, and 10% of that position was fire and emergency management. So that's just to describe why that's decreasing 0.10. There are other certain maneuvers that are also taking place too. So there used to be a deputy city clerk / legal assistant position that was located under the city clerk that is now moving from there to legal. So that's now becoming the legal assistant / deputy city clerk. And there might be a few other changes in those positions too, just to place them to where they currently exist right now. But in essence, in terms of the number of positions that we'll have as we move forward, that we're proposing as part of this budget amendment, we're asking basically for, well, it's never fun to ask for a reduction, but a reduction from 120.3 FTEs to 103.3 FTEs in total.
So I'm a little concerned about community development. I mean, if we, the council, are really serious about things like workforce housing, I'm concerned. I've been told there's some flood mitigation stuff, house raising, which are going to take a pause. Where do we have a discussion of options to get ahead back into community development? We can bring them forward. Can we have that discussion in and are you guys, do you think that's I'm just one of 7. Do you think that's appropriate to have that discussion? Are you happy with a 2-head reduction in community development? I think Ethan has hand up first.
Actually, I think Joe was up first.
All right, Joe, you're up.
Yeah, I think that I've made my opinion on this very clear that I'm very uncomfortable with us losing more heads out of community development already on a very strapped department. And again, our strategic plan has some big community development things in it. In fact, I think it has the most things in it of anything in the strategic plan. So yeah, I'm very concerned.
Ethan?
I'm similarly concerned, and I would hope that public safety would have a discussion about our behavioral health specialist. I think that we have the ability to lose a lot of money saving all this money. And I think that when you see how ridiculously efficient it was for us to have a behavioral health specialist, I think that's a position we cannot afford to lose. And I think we need to do whatever we can to get it back.
Councilman Washington?
Yeah, no, I agree, but yes, and when it comes to community development, I'd like to strategically take a look at what's coming up. So I know that there's some work to be done, but when is this work due? And how is it staggered out? I mean, I hate to just add a lot of headcount for projects that, and I'm just kind of going off the cuff here, but things that may not be due for 2 or 3 years out. So I'd like to kind of strategically take a look at it and see what's coming due, potentially who we may need in the department.
Let me jump in real quick. I also want us be careful. We all just said we love cake. We're gonna have to have a discussion about how much that cake costs. So let's have that conversation to come of, if we do this, how are we gonna pay for it? But that'll be follow-on conversations from tonight. Councilman Johnson, I think you had your hand up again, and then I'll go to.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention on the behavioral health specialist, I think is the title. Yeah, that's something that we did talk about in FNA when we were looking at this, and it seemed like it was a priority to the three of us as well to continue. However, the argument was made that, especially with the police department maybe going only down to covering Snoqualmie, that there would be less potential need for a full-time person in that position. So one thing that we could consider is trying to find something a little more creative, where maybe this would be someone who could be interdepartmental, that could serve the Upper Valley or something, whatever it is that makes sense. But it could be that a full 1.0 might not make sense for just the city of Snoqualmie. And I was open to that argument. And I think more conversation should be had around that to justify one direction or another.
Councilman Cotton?
I think that's an excellent point regarding the mental health specialist, because if you look statistically back at the calls that were generated in the police department stats, that the majority of, when we had one, the majority of the calls that were being, or patients that were being seen were with North Bend as compared to Snoqualmie. And the fire department also does have some access and funds for using outside services too. So there are some, maybe some stopgap type of things that are possible. But my question actually was in regards to police services with the loss of the officers, the exodus that we've already had. Does that put us at the at Snoqualmie staffing as far as where we're going to be going forward?
Yes, well, go ahead, Mike.
Yes, our sworn staffing is at the level that it will be, that we are proposing going forward, yes. There are no vacancies.
And my follow-up to that is noticing on the position summary on the costs that were associated, like 25, 26 and going forward, there was $50,000 a year in overtime. So we're going to be back in that same scenario where to cover vacations and holiday and things like that, that the police are going to be back into overtime again.
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
you basically have a staff to support one city supporting 2 cities right now for the period through March. So there's going to be additional overtime expenses. Looking at Jana back there, if that was the intention, and she's shaking her head yes. So yeah.
Okay.
So just to make a note as well, you'll see Snoqualmie Police right there increasing from 16.65 to 18 FTEs in total. The department was broken out in August of last year between North Bend and Snoqualmie. That equaled the contract that we had proposed to North Bend at the time, so that we would remain consistent with that. As a consequence of what you see here is we're increasing the police department staffing count from 16.65, adding 1.35 FTEs to that mix. What 18 is going to get you is it's going to get you a police chief, police captain, 4 sergeants, 8 officers, 2 admin specialist positions, a detective, and a school resource officer. And so as a part of this amendment, that is what we're proposing for the kind of organization of the police department moving forward.
Do we need a full-time detective for just Snoqualmie based on the caseload?
City Administrator?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, the police chief's at a conference, so he'd be your answer. to the questions,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, no,
I'll
But
just,
can we
I appreciate that.
have more of that discussion in public safety?
Yes.
Give more background to the yes. Councilor Watton?
I would agree with all the discussion. The one thing that would be helpful to know is community development, how much of that could be outsourced and under contract versus a full-time employee, because it'll give us more, perhaps more flexibility. And I do agree that we need to take a look at the behavioral health position and how it impacts, both fire and the police as well. So maybe having a little more information around the community development positions and what the potential is there, but we're going to have to decide where those resources go between those 3 areas, public safety and 2 areas, public safety and community development.
Councilor Cotton?
Community development, so we're having our community liaison move into the communications position.
That's one of the heads, yeah.
Okay, but, and then will we fill the community liaison position? Is that part of the, or is that part of the reduction?
That whole position got moved into the communications department. So there's no vacancy to fill.
Okay,
And it is part of the reduction only because it's going down in community development
Plus and
and it's
minus.
moving up to administrative departments.
okay. Oh, okay.
So that work out of the.
Councilor Ritson?
Yeah, I guess the main point that I wanted to make was that we need to look at employees that that more than make up for their salary in the savings. I think the behavioral health specialist is a great example where we found that because we had the behavioral health specialist, it increased the efficiency of our police officers and our firefighters immensely, far more than the cost of having the behavioral health specialist. And even if we look at just Snoqualmie, the places where we had a lot of issues that were dealt with by the behavioral health specialist were in Snoqualmie. So we will still have those issues even after the end of that agreement. In the past, our city has had, for example, grant writers who got cut to make the budget look right, but we lost a lot of that grant writing capability and ended up losing more than we gained.
I see Drew twitching. I'm just gonna, let me kind of bow tie it for a minute. Can we, like for the community health, behavior health, thank you. Health officer, can we have a kind of a context conversation in public safety of what the cost would be, what the metrics are that would either justify or not justify that position, and how we could, if it doesn't justify, maybe there's still some service, how we could address. Can we take that to public safety? Hang on a second. And can we take the community development conversation to community development and then bring those all back into FNA next week? You had your hand up.
Yes, the police chief's been working for about a month to pull the behavioral data together. And I received it 2 minutes before 5 o'clock. So we now have the data. We'll be preparing it, and bring it forth in public safety.
Okay, you got it, or can we get like Drew?
That's good.
2 quick things.
Okay,
I believe they're going to be quick. Just want to mention that there is a trade-off in savings on salaries from contracting versus hiring someone. The main thing with regard to CD being the lack of institutional knowledge, and that that has a monetary value in a way. Second thing was, I think that this is, I think I know the answer to this, but I want to make sure that it's the answer that I think it is. Did these budget amendment projections include any assumptions related to the upcoming fee study and fees that we might adopt? I guess it's technically a two-parter, but I assume that's going to be a quick answer.
The answer is yes, and we'll be touching upon that later in the presentation a little
And then the
bit.
second one was about the public safety sales tax. Did this include that? That we
No.
did not adopt?
No.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Why is this presentation taking so long?
Star.
All right, Drew, you've got the floor.
All right. So moving right along, thank you, everyone. Just wanted to kind of discuss a little bit about budget to actuals for 2025. The chart that I have here just kind of shows you the general fund at this point, none of the other funds. But in essence, the point that I'm trying to make is through this budget amendment, we're not trying to cover everything. We're not trying to cover everything under the sun necessarily. So right now we've spent about 85.5% of the 25 amended budget at this stage, when roughly 83.3% of the year has kind of passed at this stage. So we're still a little bit above budget kind of as we've submitted this amendment to you overall, which means that really the departments have some work to do on their own. So we're not here to fix everything for the departments and try to make them whole as much as possible. They have some discretion in this as well. And so they will have some work to do to kind of live within their means. Keep in mind that this is a 2-year budget, so they have until the end of 2026 to kind of get all this into alignment for the most part, but we are not, as a part of this budget amendment, attempting to try to fix everything. And so with that said, I just want to move into the importance of financial forecasting. So the purpose of a financial forecast is to evaluate current and future financial conditions to guide policy and level of service decisions. Forecasting, I think, as we've experienced over time, can help us to plan for the future, make those informed decisions, and then identify any sort of potential problems that are coming up. So it's really critical that we continue on a reoccurring basis to provide you with a financial forecast, because that will help everyone here with the decisions overall. Often a question that we're asking ourselves is the city of Snoqualmie financially sustainable? Well, that's very much, I think, as Councilman Benson has talked about in the past, a very rhetorical question for the most part, because we know we've got this kind of 1% property tax cap that we're dealing with each and every year that kind of acts as a drag on us, is what I would say, I think, overall. We might ask ourselves, will revenues keep pace with the change in expenditures annually? Generally, the answer is not quite, because if you can only increase your major revenue source inside the general fund 1% overall, generally your expenditures are going to exceed that. And we know that from the COLAs that are coming through the CBAs and everything like that, it's going to be hard for us to kind of hit that expenditure target and actually exceed percentage-wise our revenue expenses over time. So we're often having to ask ourselves, if not, what actions will the city of Snoqualmie need to take and when to balance our revenues with expenditures? And so that is an important question that we have to continuously remind ourselves, ask continuously. In terms of what we're focused on, we're often focused on that red bucket right there that we call governmental operating. This is the bucket that accounts for the goods and services provided by direct service departments and the administration of those departments. And it includes things such as police, fire, parks and street maintenance, community development, and so on. The other buckets that you see here, the blue one is governmental capital, which accounts for the provision of non-utility capital assets. Green is the utilities bucket, basically, that accounts for the goods and services provided by the utilities. And the internal services are all kind of governed separately for the most part. We can figure out a way to generate the revenue that we need to pay for the cost of service in each of those buckets. And we do so through different financial reports that we might produce for you. So when it comes to the blue bucket, it's usually as included as a part of the non-utility CIP. When it comes to the green bucket, utilities, we're often providing you with the utility rate study and looking at how that looks out over time. And then often when it comes to the internal services, producing an internal cost allocation plan is critical to understanding the financial health of everything within that bucket. But when it comes to governmental operating, which is very dependent on general taxes and kind of other sources of tax and fee revenue overall, we're often looking at this governmental financial forecast, and that is what we have produced for you today here. So with that said, before we get into that, we're also impacted by some assumptions. And one of the major assumptions that we're often making is Where do we think the economy is going overall? I think a lot of you have been probably attuned to this over time, just with the kind of federal government and what's happening within that space overall. I would, from my perspective, say that we're potentially slumping as we kind of head into the holiday season overall. From what I can read, the tea leaves that I'm reading is that slower growth is expected. So most forecasts project real GDP growth between 1.4 to 1.8% in 25 with a slight deceleration into 2026. There's some other projections that are relatively within that range. I think everyone here is experiencing that job growth is weakening overall. You heard conversations about monthly payroll additions, for example, and we're only adding about 60,000 jobs to the economy. At this point, unemployment is rising, however, slightly, with projections around 4.5% in 25 and expected to remain elevated into 2026. And long-term unemployment is increasing right now, comprising about 25% of the unemployed population. Inflation, while it has cooled, and I think you remember the conversation from last year when we've kind of worked towards a soft landing. Well, once we've got, past about 100 feet of roadway or runway, it's now become very bumpy, especially with this new administration. So interest rates have certainly declined, and so we expect an additional rate cut this year, but we're still dealing with inflation that's above the 2% target. And the Fed is starting to shift its focus from inflation control to labor market support. And in some cases, this might be certainly a recipe for stagflation that we have to kind of keep in mind heading into next year. In addition to that, tariffs and immigration policy are kind of some key downside risks that we have to deal with, potentially dampening that growth and raising our costs. Overall, from the tariffs and the impact of that, price levels have risen about 1.3% in the short term, translating to an average household income loss of about $1,800. And consumer spending as a result of this is weakened due to those higher prices, but also that kind of slower job growth. From that, there's a very important measure called consumer sentiment overall that has been dipping, I think, pretty substantially. And you tack on top of that a government shutdown in which the government isn't necessarily spending as much as they used to. You kind of have a recipe that's starting to get me worried and probably get everyone here worried a little bit too. So we know that our recession risk remains elevated. I'd say it's probably a bit above elevated right now, but there isn't really any sort of deep consensus is what I would say. Some models suggest a near coin flip chance, while others are a little bit more optimistic. If there is a recession, however, most economists would not expect a long or deep recession, but many warn the economy is vulnerable to shocks. In terms of the Fed, which is designed to kind of handle two important factors, that is trying to get inflation down to 2%, while making sure that they're getting unemployment as low as they possibly can. They're trying to meet competing goals. The primary lever that they have available at them is that Fed funds rate that they set. And so policymakers are holding strongly differing views, leaving the near future of rate cuts uncertain. We know that there's likely one coming up in December, but Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, said that there is no risk-free path for policy as we navigate the tension between our employment and inflation goals. Some of the people that the president has added to the Fed board recently want to pursue more of an aggressive rate reduction, I think, overall. But there's still some part of that process that are looking at keeping the rates elevated overall to tackle the inflation. You get the rates lower, you're going to speed up the economy or heat up the economy for the most part. You're shoveling coal into the engine that would potentially set off inflation. So generally, the Fed will raise the rates in order to try to bring inflation down, but that can also dampen the economy, leading to higher unemployment. So it's a very hard decision point that they're at right now, is what I'm trying to say. In terms of us regionally overall, we're treading water economically. The state of Washington is on a recession watch list by Moody Analytics as either in or near a recession. Factors include tariffs, slower immigration, federal job cuts, and a weak business investment environment. Recent Chamber of Commerce survey found that 80% of Seattle voters believe a recession is imminent. So there's generally a pessimism out there amongst the public. We know that unemployment in King County is rising. So unemployment dipped in Q2, shedding about 11,400 jobs for a 0.8% decrease. You can imagine, I think everyone here has heard about Amazon and their reductions as well. And so we do know that the tech sector is currently experiencing a dip in unemployment, but we do have some offsetting strengths. So higher wages overall and productivity remains strong. We do have a fairly diverse economy, kind of led by our three anchors kind of here locally. That includes Boeing, Microsoft, and Amazon. And then there's been substantial investment in AI and data centers as well. But there is fear that there's a bubble that might burst in the futures that we have to be aware of as well. So not necessarily promising economically overall. In terms of some indicators right here, we've got in the first box unemployment growth, second box housing prices, third box taxable sales, and the fourth one inflation overall, and comparisons between the different years. And this is coming from the Office of Economic, well, I can't remember now. So, but anyway, in terms of employment growth, so this is year to date through 25, not just focus on Q2, but employment growth is actually negative for year to date 2025. Housing prices have increased about 4.4%. Taxable sales have been relatively anemic, which is relatively similar to 2024. And then inflation, while it has decreased, we do expect that to kind of tick up over time overall. And so just kind of a chart that King County is producing that thankfully we get to use here. Just to kind of start off with what we were looking at in September of 2024 in terms of a financial forecast overall is this picture, which looked decent, I would say, for the most part. So in terms of the green boxes that you have there, bars that you've got, that is forecasted ongoing revenues. And this is in our kind of governmental operating bucket for September of 2024. The light blue represents forecasted ongoing expenditures. The yellow represents our ending fund balance inside of governmental operating. And a red line represents our reserve target overall. So as a consequence of that, you can see for 2025, we were starting with cash above our reserve target. As time progresses, because we're restricted to only increasing our property taxes by 1%, you can start to see that curve start to bend. As a result, by 2030, we are projecting our forecasted ongoing expenditures to exceed our forecasted ongoing revenues, and that we would be hitting our reserve target in 2034. Now, there's been two sort of monumental changes a little bit that happened pretty much over the summer that we have to account for. The first one is the new inflation forecast overall. As you can see, there's been a dramatic change as a part of this chart. So the inflation forecast overall has impacted what you see here. In addition to that, there's also an impact from the utility rate study as well. I don't know if council recalls, I see a hand up.
Go ahead, finish your point. And
So, as a part of the utility rate study overall, what we had built into the budget for last year was a placeholder for that utility rate study. After the conversations and the approval of the utility rate study, we have to keep in mind that the city taxes its own utilities, and that tax on those utilities, which is equal to 9%, goes into the general fund to support police, fire, parks, and street maintenance. And so because we've reduced the rates less than what we had built into for a placeholder overall last year, that means our utility taxes are expected to be less as well, which is adding to this picture that you see here. As a consequence of this, the time period in which the forecasted ongoing expenditures exceed our forecasted ongoing revenues is going to creep up to 2028. And then we're expected to dip below our reserve target by 2031.
why does our reserve target remain flat?
It's not actually remaining flat in this picture. It's actually increasing as
Oh,
time
okay.
progresses. So it's hard to notice.
I can't see the increase.
Right. You
Okay,
can't.
all right.
Yeah.
But it increases as
Yeah.
our expenditures
You can
and
see it.
revenues.
It's basically because of the scale. So the fact that we're dealing with 30 million here, and yeah, it's hard to see that kind of transition, but it is increasing.
Councilman Washington?
And Director, this does not include the public safety sales increase.
Correct.
tax.
Yes,
Okay, I'd be curious to see a model including that.
that's coming up.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, read my mind.
Yeah.
Ask and you shall receive.
Oh, wait a
Thank
minute.
you.
Councilman Johnson?
And one last thing, this is without this is an amended budget, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah. So now we're going to get to the amended piece of this as well. So before that, though, I do want to share with you what our assumptions are when it comes to inflation overall. So the top one is what we incorporated into our forecast for from July of 2024. So producing that September 2024 financial forecast chart, You can see that the expected inflation between 2026 and 2034 was roughly between, say, 2.7 to 3% within that range overall. As a result of some of these changes when it comes to those tariff increases and so on, for July of 2025, that inflation forecast has increased all the way to 2034 to 3.2 to 3.6%. Now, I want you to keep in mind that no one has a crystal ball that's going to be accurate in 2034. We're using King County as our proxy, so they have a staff of economists that are predicting some of this that we're then using to build our financial forecast. But I would say, there's always changes that happen. And as time progresses overall, there will be more changes. And so likely when you get into the outer years, this is going to change. So don't take this as gospel necessarily. The sooner the year is, the more predictability I think it has overall. But as a consequence of changing our inflationary expectations from that forecast previously to today, our expenses are expected to be 5.7% higher by 2034 than originally forecasted. And that just kind of shows you the sensitivity, I would say, from that inflation and how that impacts us overall. So even though it's a 5.7% increase, you can see how that curve really starts to dip as a result. When it comes to our amendment, when you start to build in the amendment overall, things just get a little bit more strained, I would say, overall. So the time period in which our forecasted ongoing expenditures begin to exceed our forecasted ongoing revenues now creeps up from 2028 to 2027. We're still kind of at that 2031 target when our ending fund balance is going to dip below our reserve target overall. But we'll be kind of heading there faster is what I would tell you. And so that just kind of shows you when you start to plug in these amendments overall, that's kind of what it looks like. In terms of other kind of key uncertainties that we have, we know we've gone through the North Bend Police Services contract and we have to a degree of resolution on that. We've gone through the utility rate studies, so we know what the consequences of that are. Other big factors that are going to creep up potentially in the future includes the economy, what direction that's heading, future cost of living adjustments. So as you know, we've just recently had a mediation with the fire union. But there are other expenditure decisions and contracts that are going to come up over time. That includes the school resource officer, dispatch services, landscape services. And then we're going to be heading off into a discussion around the capital improvement plan, probably starting early next year, that could have some influence on what we do with governmental operating. In addition, there are some other revenues decisions, and we'll get to that shortly, so don't worry about that. Save that for last overall. But in terms of forecasting our key revenues overall, we have plugged in a 1.25% average annual increase in property tax revenue, which assumes the council will approve the 1% property tax increase annually, and then a small amount of infill development will take place. We've included a 3.3% average annual increase in ongoing sales and B&O tax revenue, but we need to be mindful that there is a changing retail environment here locally. That 3.3% is kind of there under the assumption that it's going to keep up relatively with inflation. But, in terms of our highly kind of localized economy overall, that may shift. So we're using kind of regional trends to try to describe what's going to happen in our kind of localized space, but that is not always the case. In addition to that, we've got a 4% average annual increase in utility tax revenue that we're forecasting as a part of this. This also assumes continued declines in telephone and the cable utility taxes. But utility tax revenue is expected to keep pace with the overall increase in utility rates. So we're kind of forecasting our utility rates, and that will influence how much we expect our utility taxes to increase. Also keep in mind that there are solid waste increases as well as electricity increases as well that we're also taxing too, that is influencing this 4% average annual increase. We're also predicting a 3.3% average annual increase in the charges for goods and services. And this is where we start to assume a revenue increase resulting from the proposed comprehensive fee study, which has been included in the budget for 2025. Now we're passing 2025 a little bit at this point, so we'll have to keep that in mind as time progresses. In regards to the comprehensive fee study, our plan is to bring that back to you in January of next year. So right now, we've kind of gone through, developed the report. We have a sense of what that is, and now we need to bring you options basically to council to discuss. We have a sense of the low end, the high end for the most part, and we'll have that conversation with you. And depending on whether we want to go the low end or the high end could change depending on the fees. as a part of the work that Jana has completed along with all the departments. So thank you to the departments that are online or wherever they are right now. There was 353s that we assessed as a part of that comprehensive fee study. So that's something that's going to be critical for us to have a discussion in early next year.
Councilmember Johnson?
Was the 3.3% only for the comprehensive fee study, or are there other things that are also?
There are
in that
other
that-
things. Yeah, it's primarily those other
To look
things,
at that.
but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've also included a 1.8% average annual increase for other revenues, including an increase in 2026 and decrease in 27 to reflect the Snoqualmie Mill development activity. So we're expecting some of that permit activity to kind of happen that we've built into that, but we haven't budgeted for any of the kind of recurring revenue sources as a part of that. So we'd expect that if that work happens, that we're going to get additional property tax revenue and sales and B&O tax revenue as a result, but we haven't built that into the financial forecast overall. In terms of what we're not including, so like I mentioned, it doesn't include any ongoing property tax or sales and B&O tax increases from potential development, including the Snoqualmie Mill. It doesn't include the public safety enhancement sales tax or other potentially new revenue sources, and it doesn't assume a recession, which is always a possibility as a part of this too. What's really important for us to keep in mind is we do have to have a balanced budget, and I'm pulling this directly from the financial management policy overall, which states that ongoing revenue should equal or exceed ongoing expenditures in both the proposed and adopted budgets. If a structural imbalance occurs, then a plan should be developed and implemented to bring the budget back into structural balance. Now, we reflect this for 2 years for the most part, but given the fact that our ongoing expenses are expected to exceed our ongoing revenues for 27 to 28, we're gonna have to work towards trying to solve that for that biennium that's going to come up. And so we'll have to kind of work on developing that plan and implementing it to bring that structural balance into place for that biennium for the most part. How we often do that is we tend to look in 3 different areas. So we'll often look at trying to enhance our revenues. We'll often look at trying to develop it economically, and then we'll often look at trying to optimize our levels of service. And often we're trying to pull different levers pretty much simultaneously in order to kind of meet those goals that we have overall. So we know that we struggle with a structural imbalance. Plenty of cities do as well, but we have to remain proactive. And I think this council has done a good job of remaining on top of it and proactive and trying to solve the problem before, hits us in the face for the most part. So we're going to look forward to doing that again with you next year. In terms of some just very preliminary options overall that will need council feedback on, and potentially there's other ideas out there. So I would say this is incomplete, but in terms of the enhancing revenue category, I'll just bring up Councilmember Khan brought this to our attention over the weekend, the Medic One EMS levy that we haven't built in the financial forecast, but that is likely going to generate $40,000 more. So thank you for mentioning that over the weekend. We've also talked about the comprehensive fee study a little bit. We did budget money into it for that, but we'll have to make sure that we kind of figure that out at the start of January next year. On this list, you'll also see the public safety enhancement sales tax. So that's expected to generate about $300,000 in ongoing revenue. Cable franchise fee agreement, that's approximately $150,000. Snoqualmie Tribe fee for service. I know the elected officials have been working on that with their counterparts at the tribe for a while. Business licensing, taxes review and audit. This is part of a conversation around the strategic plan. There's some other options here, square footage tax potentially, relooking at our CIP and asking ourselves, do we need to allocate these different revenue sources to the CIP for non-utilities? So there may be a revenue restructure that we can consider. And then lastly, property tax levy lift. This is part of this options here as well. In terms of developing economically, we've got the Snoqualmie Mill on this list, the Railway Museum Roundhouse Project, the Pacific West Rail Model Train Museum, Snoqualmie Valley Hospital expansion, and then Timber Trails. In terms of optimizing levels of service, and this is pretty much some of the things that we've discussed as a part of the strategic plan, transferring the Snoqualmie Parkway, potential transfers of other city property, vehicle replacement schedule review, internal services review, primarily, I think, focused around a little bit of IT, making sure that we've got that appropriately sized, regional partnerships, and then some other ones such as maybe looking at how we position ourselves competitively with our COLAs, as well as potentially looking into health benefits overall. In terms of the strategic plan, just to bring that up a little bit, someone mentioned that this fiscal sustainability requires structural solutions, not incremental adjustments. And so as consequence of yeah. And efficiencies can't be the only solution, I think, overall. And while I would agree with the comment that requires structural solutions, the one that's really the most important structural solution probably is the 1% property tax cap and probably revising that at the state level. So because we don't quite have that option available to us at our fingertips overall, we do often have to look for incremental adjustments basically to help kick the curve out as much as we can as time progresses. But just want to keep that in mind. I thought that was a prescient comment from someone. Just wanted to make sure that that was clear, that it's hard for us to really generate these structural solutions that's going to solve our fiscal sustainability challenge, which is why it's such a hard, knotty question to address in the first place. In terms of adding some of these elements to it, so if you look at the public safety sales tax right here, you can see that we're now starting to push things out a little bit. So our forecasted ongoing revenues would continue to exceed our forecasted ongoing expenditures through at least 2028. So you're kind of pushing it out by a year. But by that point, instead of say dropping below our reserve target by 2030, 2031, you can see that that now kind of crossover point would be 2033. If you were to also add into the mix, you know, the cable franchise fee as well, you can see that we're now almost back to where we were starting in September of 2024. Not perfectly, we might still want to kick more, right? Kick the curve out as far as we can. But if you were to add those two, not at the suggestion that that is what council should do from the finance department, but if you were to take those two options and plug that into the financial forecast chart, that is what you might be able to see as a result of this, pending obviously other expenditure increases and so on. And as you know, forecasting can be a bit more of an art than it is a science. So we don't have a perfect crystal ball, but this is what the picture that we have currently right now. So with that said, hopefully I made time. I think I did. So thank you. Any questions?
Any questions from council? All right. Thank you, Drew. All right, there be no further business to come before the
What?
council.
You have a chance.
Okay.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn the special meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, there is a motion and a second to adjourn the special meeting. All those in favor say aye.
I
Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
We are adjourned. We will reconvene at 7 o'clock. I'd like to call the Cass City Council meeting to order. Time is now 7 o'clock. Let the record show all council members are present with the exception of Councilmember Christensen, who has already previously been excused. Council, please stand and join me in the saying and pledge of allegiance. Councilmember Benson, will you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We now move on to approval of the agenda for a regular council meeting. We have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion on the agenda? Councilmember Cotton?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a comment, especially for the members of council that have full-time jobs, young families, and many other commitments. The fact that we're getting a agenda packet of 771 pages to read 3 days prior to a meeting, I would sure like to see that maybe we could at least have some things dispersed in a more timely fashion, not the whole packet. I mean, whatever comes in, if it can be sent out, I would sure appreciate it to not have to spend a nice weekend reading through all the documents, since we're not all on committees that we've already pre-read everything. I don't know how the other council members feel, but.
Go on, Councilor Johnson.
Though I'm not hearing an amendment to the agenda, perhaps that could be something we could take to F&A to talk about, perhaps having some sort of like a threshold of this is looking like it's going to be over 500, maybe some portion of that being centered. Like I said, talk to at F&A, just saying maybe some sort of an amendment to policies and procedures on that.
All right, I'd also advise that the committee agendas the week prior give you indication of what's going to come up in council, and you have that whole week to jumpstart some of that. Councilmember Washington?
Yeah, I'd echo the same comment. Just there are quite a few ordinances, quite a few items on the agenda tonight. We are a deliberative body. It's a pretty packed agenda. I mean, we're going to be here pretty late, and just wondering if it really allows us the opportunity to thoroughly go through what we need to go through.
We'll advise if there are items where we want to push it to next council, we can.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Boy, you all have to say the whole time.
No. No.
The doors.
All right. We did the approval of the, oh, I do have one item. I move to take from the agenda resolution amending the financial management policies. We'd like to go through and do another review of those with, city attorney. May I have a second? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Councilmember Cotton, there's one item off the agenda for tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Not a big item, but that's all. All right. Having said that, with that modification to the agenda, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Agenda is approved as amended. With that, we'll move on to public hearings, appointments, presentation, proclamations. Tonight, we have two public hearings. The first is of Agenda Bill 25-105, Property Tax Levy. And I guess I heard there was nobody signed up for public comment in regards to that. Okay, I now open the public hearing. In regards to this, is there anybody sitting in present who hasn't already signed up, because nobody did, who would like to make comment in regards to property tax levy ordinance we're discussing tonight? All right, seeing none, I will close public hearing in regards to that. We'll move on with the rest of the agenda. All right, just word of note, online public comments are always accepted. Please go ahead and forward those on to council members through the email addresses we have.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I believe you said online, and I think that what you may have meant is email, not like people who are present online at this meeting.
correct. Email or, yeah, offline. Go ahead and email us. All right, with that, we'll move on. The second public hearing is for Agenda Bill 25-107, which is a 2025-2026 mid-biennium amendment. I'll now open the public hearing. In this proceeding, the community is invited to provide comments regarding the proposal to adopt ordinance 1309, amending the 2025-2026 biennial budget. Only persons appearing in person will have the opportunity to speak. And as I said before, we currently do not take online public comments, but if you so choose, please email city clerk or the council and we'll receive those comments. I believe nobody has signed up on the sign-up sheet. Is there anybody in attendance wishing to talk in regards to the 2025-2026 mid-biennium budget adjustment? All right. Seeing no one, we'll go ahead and close that public hearing. All right, I must be using this then.
Oh, big guns.
All right. With that, we close that. We'll move on to next. Next is Fire Department Lieutenant Promotion and Introduction to Volunteers. Chief Bailey, will you please lead this item?
Good evening, council. So as we come before you tonight, we have a couple of milestones that we want to present in the fire department. First of all, I'm going to introduce to you two of our volunteers. So I'll have Stephen and Naomi come on up here and join me. You get to stand up here with me. So Stephen and Naomi joined us in the spring. Over the summer, they were cleared to respond and start pulling shifts, but we wanted to take this opportunity to introduce them to you and tell you a little bit about them. They're both volunteer EMS members of the department. So first of all, Stephen, Stephen was born and raised in Sammamish and has lived in Snoqualmie since 2020. He works as a software engineer and spends his free time skiing, running, and mountaineering. He also volunteers with the Tacoma Mountain Rescue and serves as the vice chair for the Washington Mountain Rescue Association. And then I asked him a little bit about why they wanted to join our department. And he says he's excited to grow his EMS skills with the Snoqualmie Fire Department and serve the community that he calls home. And now for Naomi Masella. Naomi is from Renton and works as an EMT with AMR, one of the private ambulance companies, responding to 911 calls alongside the Seattle Fire Department. She joined Snoqualmie Fire for its commitment to high quality care and community engagement and is excited to learn more about EMS and the fire service while making a positive impact. So Mayor Pro Tem Holloway, if you'd like to come up and present them with their helmets, if you want to go up there and we'll have him present you with your helmets.
The red one.
Your individual pictures? Here's your helmet.
There we go. For the picture. Around, there we go. There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. As I said, it's really great to have them as members of the department. They've done a great job. They've already worked well with us and responding to multiple calls and pulling shifts. So they're really great additions to the department. So next I'll have Peter come on up. All right, so Peter, I'm pleased to present Peter O'Donnell as the next lieutenant of the fire department. Peter will be taking over as the lieutenant on C shift following Robert Lazo's retirement back in the spring. And he was just promoted up November 1st. Peter started with the fire department as a volunteer in 2015 and then was hired as a career firefighter in 2020. So he's one of our own homegrown. Served as a firefighter, a driver, and has been an acting officer since the beginning of the year. Over the years, he's been responsible for uniforms and PPE, equipment on the engines and the A cars, and swiftwater rescue. So tonight, Peter is joined by his wife, Jenny, and his children, Sylvie, Sawyer, and Gracie. And I just wanted to say that I'm excited for Peter and his promotion and look forward to having him on our leadership team. So congratulations, Peter. So we'll go ahead and start with Mayor Pro Tem presenting you with your helmet, and then we'll call your lovely wife up to do the badge pinning.
Thank you. So, and your wife come up? She'll go ahead and pin your bag on.
Be a loss right there on the table. As is the tradition in the fire service, the spouse usually will come up and pin on the badge and accompanied minors.
You get a feeling.
Yeah, we'll get pictures here in a sec. All right, why don't you guys go up and get a picture of everybody together? Family picture time. The helmet's red. I mean, that's. All right, we'll just do a couple other pictures with myself and Peter and. Yeah, sure. You're the representative.
I'm standing in, I admit.
Do we have careers?
Oh, we'll have the other two volunteers come up too.
Okay.
On your side of Peter there. There you go. You got everybody there? Go back up.
White shot. Oh, yeah.
All right.
Cake upstairs or something? And particularly the family, I believe you have refreshments or whatever. You don't have to, beside what Councilman Benson says, you don't have to sit through the whole thing.
That he's getting soft.
Just like that, take some people out of the room. I'll be back shortly.
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Probably should have sat down. All right, next, we're pleased to present our City Academy participants with their certificates of completion. City Manager Chambliss, will you please introduce this item?
No. So tonight we have some very special people in the audience. They gave up 2.5 hours on some nights. Some people wanted to go a little longer, but most nights it was 2.5 hours. And they spent time away from their families to really learn a more in-depth about what government does. And I think I'm speaking for them a little bit, but I think several of them were very surprised and they shared their surprise on how much little stuff actually goes in to making sure that people don't even have to think about what we're thinking about. So I thank them. They even gave up half of a Saturday. And I heard from Jeff that they didn't want to leave when they were out at Public Works. They were enjoying themselves so much. So with that, I'll turn it back to the Mayor Pro Tem to award you certificates of completion.
Just do one big hard shot though.
Okay. Certificates here. Those out. Joshua Alexander. Sir?
We'll have you just say that too.
Yeah, just stay up here. We'll get one picture at the end of this. Addie Brady. Did I get that right?
Probably not.
Get that. Addie. Kiana Charles. Addie O'Keefe. Rashiri Petra.
Don't hold it against him.
Eric Wright. Mark Schechter. And thank, I know, like he was saying, it's a lot of time and it's great to see. We don't often get people even interested in what we're doing here tonight. So it's great to see you taking the time to actually learn in detail city stuff. We need more of it. Thank you.
Well then. You want to hold your get up? Then get balance. Awesome. Oh, much better.
And again, thank you. We are truly grateful, but we're also grateful if you want to go home, have time with your friend, with your family. We understand.
Thank you.
All right.
So public comments.
All right, that brings us to the public comment portion of the agenda for tonight. At this time, we will provide time for residents to comment on items not on the agenda. No online public comments will be accepted during the meeting. Written comments are encouraged and may be submitted in person, mail, or email to the city clerk at snoqualmiewa.gov. First, few ground rules. Snoqualmie residents who are not present have the right to have their elected representative perform the duties on behalf of the city in an efficient and orderly manner. Therefore, comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. Please wait to be recognized. State your name and city of residence for the record. Direct your comments to the council as a whole and not to individual members. Please note that this is not the time to ask questions of the council, mayor, staff, or to engage in debate. The council will quietly and respectfully listen to your concerns. I'll go on with that. Is there anyone wishing to make comments before the council tonight? We proceed up to the podium and give us your name and residence in 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening. I'm Shannon Sharon. I'm a resident of Snoqualmie. And I'm here today as in my capacity as a board member for the Food Bank of Snoqualmie Valley. Given the uncertainty of SNAP funding, rising food prices, and recent layoffs, I'm here tonight because I wanted to remind you and the entire community that the Snoqualmie Valley Food Bank remains steadfast in our commitment to making sure that no one in our community goes hungry. As always, we stand ready to serve every person who knocks on our door. In addition to our regular open hours, every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we are creating new ways to meet the growing need for support. Our dedicated team, including our staff and dedicated volunteers, will be filling bags of groceries to distribute to partners across the valley, making food available for pickup at new locations such as libraries and businesses when it's not possible for someone to get food from the food bank during open hours. We've been heartened by the many, many offers to help and support in response to the reduction in SNAP benefits. We're so lucky to live in a community that will not let its neighbors go to bed hungry. I wanted to share 4 quick ways that the community can help at this challenging time. The first and most important, spread the word. Everyone is welcome at the food bank always. This may be the first time some members of our community find themselves in need of the food bank's support. Please, if you know someone who needs food, come see us. We're here for you, no questions, no judgment. Second, can you help us strengthen our distribution efforts? We're continuing to partner with other businesses across the valley to make sure those food bags get to where they need to be and are needed most. If you know of a business or organization willing to accept pre-filled, ready-to-go food bags, making food available to more people in diverse locations and hours, please let us know by email at info@snoqualmievalleyfoodbank.org. Third, consider donating food. Our most requested items can be found on our website. In particular, we always need Ensure for our elders and formula for our babies. We also encourage folks to consider hosting a food drive at one of our local grocery stores. Remember, a reduction in SNAP benefits impacts our local grocers too by reducing the number of shoppers and increasing sales. Coordinating a food drive with our local grocery stores can help keep our local economy strong. And finally, if you're in the position to give, your monetary donations ensure high nutrition, fresh foods, and vegetables are always available for our clients. We can buy food in bulk at wholesale prices, ensuring that fresh foods like fruit, vegetable, cheese, and eggs are always available on shelves and stretching every dollar until even further. Today, together, we can keep the shelves stocked and neighbors nourished. Thank you for your help in feeding our neighbors and spreading the word about our services in the community.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no one else raise their hands, we will now close public comment and we'll move on with the agenda for tonight. All right, with that, we will move on to the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda tonight are approval of the city council minutes dated October 27th, 2025. Approval of the claims report dated November 10th, 2025. Agenda Bill 25-101, South King County Fire Training Consortium Interlocal Agreement. And Agenda Bill 25-113, awarding contract for 2025 sidewalk repair and replacement project. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any items wishing to be pulled from the consent agenda? All right, any discussion? Councilman Johnson?
Wanted to thank the members of the public who put in their submissions for the sidewalk replacement program. We don't have the staff to go around driving up and down every single street, noting every single offset. I'm sure that staff noted some, but I think a great deal, the bulk of this is citizen reported instances. So thank you very much for that.
With that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, the consent agenda is approved. With that, we'll move on to ordinances. Get on to my script. Under the ordinance, we have Agenda Bill 25-092, ordinance adopting Snoqualmie School District impact fees. And I will go ahead and read the introduction. Will you bring that up? This is the 2026 update to the Snoqualmie Valley School District number 410 school impact fees. This is the first reading of the ordinance. The second reading and proposed adoption will be at the November 24th, 2025 City Council meeting. Is there any comments or questions? Do you wish to give a little background on it?
I'd be happy to. I'm Mona Davis, Community Development Director. So the Snoqualmie Valley School District submitted the annual capital facilities plan to the city, which is the basis for calculating the school impact fees. The council adopted the capital facility plan by resolution last month. And that then necessitates bringing the recommended impact fees before you for adoption by ordinance. So tonight is our first reading. This ordinance establishes school impact fees for 2026 in accordance with the Snoqualmie Valley School District CFP, which is their capital facility plan, and will change the school impact fee for single-family residences, which is a decrease for 2020, or I mean, sorry, an increase for 2026 from $10,187.76 to $13,126.84. So just a tad under $3,000. For multifamily residences, the school impact fee remains unchanged at $6,170.35. The school impact fees would be effective on January 1st of 2026. And I might add that ADUs are exempt from paying school impact fees, as that question was asked in last week's F&A meeting. And there are several exemptions that are outlined in Chapter 20, Section 60, Chapter 2010, I'm sorry, Section 60. Ryan Stokes is the Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Administrations with the school district, and he is online tonight to help answer any questions that you might have as well.
And I might add also the difference between multifamily and single, where basically the number of kids being generated in each of those categories, we're seeing, the school was seeing a difference. And that's why multifamily stayed the same and single family went up a little bit. Any other questions? All right, and again, this is first reading. We'll adopt it we'll have discussion and potential adoption at our next council meeting. Don't go anywhere though. Next is Agenda Bill 25-103, Critical Areas Ordinance. Councilman Washington, would you please read the introduction?
Yes, I will, Your Honor. This bill seeks city council adoption for the proposed ordinance adopting a revised chapter 19.12 critical areas of the Snoqualmie Municipal Code. Let's see here. Proposed motion is to move to approve ordinance 1313, amending Snoqualmie Municipal Code, Title
This is
19.
first reading tonight.
Oh, it is first reading, sorry. Yes, this is the first reading for the ordinance. Kick it back to you for any discussion.
Hi, Director Davis, do you want to talk to this one? Then we'll see if there's discussion.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So this recently went through the Planning Commission for review on October 6th and the CD Committee on November 3rd, as Chair Washington mentioned. I have Jeff Gray, he's the Managing Senior Scientist with OTAC online tonight. He's prepared to give you a very brief presentation on the proposed code updates that are outlined in the summary of changes memo that's in your packet, as well as like there's a best available science review, crosswalk, all of that information is in your packet materials. So that will provide assurances that the updates before you are in conformance with the latest environmental comprehensive plan requirements. So Jeff and I had meetings with the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife over the past several months and received a letter of support from the Regional Habitat Program Manager, commending the city for incorporating Fish and Wildlife's best available science into its regulations. I also included that letter in your packet materials. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jeff to provide a more comprehensive look at the critical areas ordinance, and then we're both happy to answer any questions. So Jeff, are you online?
I am. I am. Good evening.
There he is.
See, I will share my screen. It's a presentation that we prepared here. Thank you for the introduction, Mona. All right. And can folks see?
We're seeing it.
All right, great. So like Mona said, I'm the managing senior scientist at OTEC. Was hired by the city to do the best available science summary and support with the code updates for the Growth Management Act. I know you guys have a busy agenda this evening, so I will hit the highlights and present the summary of the best available science and code updates. All right, let's see if I can do this. All right. So, let's see here. So, like what Director Davis said, we mainly focus on Chapter 19.12, critical areas, and the flood hazard regulations at 15.12. The packet includes the updates, the code updates, a crosswalk showing previous code and the proposed code, as well as a kind of a brief assessment of potential impacts to upcoming city projects. So overall, the main focus from DFW in this round of critical areas ordinance updates was a focus on stream buffers. In the last 5, 6, 7 years or so, DFW has been compiling a synthesis of the science, basically looking at all the academic papers and synthesizing basically the current state of buffer science in terms of stream health. So they produced these 2 volumes, volume 1 and 2. They're both a few hundred pages each, and it's a summary of current stream functions. The biggest change is they've gone from stream buffers to riparian management zones, because it's a kind of a different philosophy in how you manage and protect streams, rather than a buffer where you just kind of stay out of it. Riparian management acknowledges that there's different functions that you can kind of manage for. So, just an overview of the science. Stream buffers provide 5 major functions. Stream morphology, if you think about how sediment moves and how fish spawn in the gravels. Wood, stream temperature, pollutant removal, and nutrient dynamics. So the picture on the lower left kind of shows the stream channel, a riparian zone, but then also the zone of influence kind of beyond that. The picture on the right is just an example of how much a stream can move over time. So it's hard to kind of see it on a day-to-day, but if you take a step back, streams are pretty dynamic. So to allow for a healthy stream in all of its full 5 functions, they, I think, believe the U.S. Forest Service developed FEMAT curves as the relationship between riparian ecosystem functions and processes at the distance from a stream channel. So, on the lower left is the FEMAT curve where the distance so one whole distance from the stream channel covers all 5 functions. And then the image on the right kind of shows how that might play out. They use a 200-year-old tree as sort of the limit for determining full functions of a stream, and that is because 200-foot or 200-year-old tree can provide shading of that distance, as well it can fall into the stream and provide some of those habitat inputs that fish like. So taking all 5 of those major functions, they've recommended increased buffer widths. They also recommend a minimum 100-foot buffer width just for water quality. All right. So how do we implement best available science into the city's critical areas code updates? We changed or we included the riparian management zone definition that you can see here and acknowledges those major functions. We are proposing to increase stream buffers on type F, that's class 2 fish habitat streams, and class 3 and 4, those are non-fish habitat streams. Type S shoreline streams in the shoreline management plan are not proposed to be changed because those are regulated under the shoreline management program. Class 2 type F streams buffers or riparian management zones will go from 75 feet to 200 feet. And class 3 and 4 streams protective buffers will go from 25 or 50 feet to 100 feet. So acknowledging the increase in the regulated buffer, there's also how we implement that. So we added a provision that excludes functionally isolated riparian management zones. So if you have a stream and then you have an intervening road, the buffer would end at the road. It wouldn't go across the road. We also added a provision for single-family residences that are part of a previously approved development are allowed improvements within the buffer with a maximum footprint of 250 square feet, such as decks, patios, and appurtenances. So that is what we are proposing. How this looks in the code, there's table 19.12.160-1. The current code is on the left and the proposed code is on the right, showing the buffer increase from 75 to 200 and from 50 to 100 and 25 to 100. What does this look like for the city in terms of mapping and streams? The purple lines are the type S streams. There's no change to those stream reaches because those are in the shoreline management program. The blue lines are the fish habitat, the type F streams, which will have increased buffers. And then the 200 feet, and then the lighter blue are the non-fish streams, and they will have buffers increased to 100. So the point of coming up with this exhibit and this map is to show where buffers could be implemented. A lot of the stream or city is built out already, so we acknowledge that. And if you look in the upper left, there's a couple of the blue lines that go through forested areas, and those are already open space. So those can easily be implemented there. And then on towards the south of the page, there are some undeveloped areas in the urban growth area. So also where those will could mainly be implemented. The next map I wanted to share is also the amount of wetlands that are mapped within the city, which are quite extensive. So there's already a lot of environmental encumbrances in much of the areas. And there's that layer to show that. A lot of the wetlands are along streams. And then also to remind folks about the extent of the floodplain mapping, which is the green. So a lot of the city is already encumbered, and where these new wider buffers could be implemented are the areas identified previously. Okay, for floodplains and flood hazard regulations, we are not proposing any changes to the flood hazard regulations. What we did over the last year, though, was look at the best available science and about where kind of some precipitation patterns and flooding that have occurred along the Snoqualmie and how they impact the city. So, Department of Ecology has been going around and encouraging local governments to go beyond the FEMA regulations. They regulate the 100-year floodplain. The reason is that 40% of insurance claims from 2017 to 19 were for areas outside of FEMA mapped flood zones. So what we're realizing is that the FEMA maps are increasingly unreliable in a changing climate that we haven't quite caught up to yet. So, what does that mean to add increased protection? So, a way a property can be protected is that development regulations will include what's called finished floor elevation above a freeboard. So, the freeboard is the amount of room above the 100-year elevation. So, you're basically building in a safety factor into the development code. So, for example, non-critical facilities might be finished floor be 2 feet above the 100-year flood, or for critical facilities like police or fire, hospitals, there'd be 3 feet above the flood elevation. So that's just what some other jurisdictions and what the federal agencies have been recommending. Locally to the city of Snoqualmie, um, the UW has a climate mapping for resilient Washington web tool. Is a great tool that looks at different climate projections under different carbon emission scenarios into the future, and like compare it to data that we have now. So it's how they kind of build the model. So what is it showing for Snoqualmie specifically? Between 1980 and 2009 compared to 2020 to 2049. So what's projected is a 2.7 increase. The King County average is 2.4%. So it's ticking up, but not necessarily, going to be noticeable. Another way to show it is increased precipitation. Annual precipitation amounts are going up, as well as the magnitude of the storm. So think about intensity and duration, or what causes flood events. So both are ticking up and they're projected to continue to increase, but is not statistically significant just yet. And in addition, there have been some infrastructure changes along the river. The U.S. Army Corps did their 205 project, which widened the river above the falls. They also removed the trestle, which reduced some of the constriction along the river. PSC lowered the weir crest. What year is that? I believe about 10 years ago. And as a result, King County updated the flood model for the Snoqualmie River, and it showed a 1.4-foot reduction in the 100-year base flood elevation in the city. So these changes have not been incorporated into the FEMA maps yet. In 2018, King County did a hydrologic study looking at flooding trends, current conditions. They also acknowledged that there's an increase in storm frequency and increased magnitude. However, it's not statistically significant just yet, but it is tracking with the projections. So the plan right now is to kind of hit pause on any kind of floodplain regulations update until FEMA updates the maps. King County is going to submit what's called a letter of map revision to FEMA to get updated floodplain maps for the city. And then we will know if that 1.4 reduction is true or not, but right now the code has basically kind of has a 1.4 foot kind of factor of safety built into the code. So right now we're going to pause that until the new FEMA maps have been approved, and King County is going to work on that in the next year.
So, question at this stage. I thought the city submitted low marsh, particularly on the 205 project, and we revised our floodway as a result.
Oh, that I do not know. I can get back to you on that though.
Please check. The city has been very active in managing its floodway.
Yes.
It was on the 205 project.
205, and we may have done it again on the Weir. I would check both. Again, the city has been very active in managing the floodway and in submitting low marsh.
So there, and I don't want to. I'm not a floodplain engineer or modeler, But there's also a step where for a singular project, you can get a letter of map revision, or you can get a certified letter of map revision, which then redraws the FEMA maps. And I'm not sure which one, but I will figure that out.
Yeah, please check. I know we have.
Yes, because the floodplain compliance can be achieved on like a per project basis. So I will look into that and we will get back to you on that one.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see. Oh, yes. Okay. Sorry, are there any other questions uh about flood regulations or flooding trends in the city? No? Okay.
There might be one
We have,
here.
Chair,
Oh,
we have a
wait a minute.
question.
Well,
Councilman Cotton, go ahead.
mine pertains more to the ordinance than to specifically floodplain issues, so I can wait till the end.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead and proceed. We'll have further questions as we go.
Okay, sounds good. Let's see. So just want to remind you that there's a crosswalk which shows the current code and the new proposed code is in the packet. And the other question we have received along the way is how do the code updates impact upcoming city projects? There's no impacts to the downtown. A lot of it's within the shoreline management plan or program jurisdiction, which we're not recommending any changes right now. Snoqualmie Valley Hospital, the buffer widths are vested and it's under construction. The Snoqualmie Dog Park is already encumbered just by its location. The Model Train Museum is also within SMP jurisdiction, so there's no change or impact to that project. There's also the Gateway lot where Christmas trees and other things are sold right there at the corner. That's also within SMP jurisdiction, so no impacts. And then we also looked at Mill Site Phase 1 that was included in the EIS that was approved for that site. I think there's minor impacts to phase 2 and 3, but it was hard to tell because there isn't a proposed concept plan for phase 2 and 3 yet. So I'm just assuming there will be some kind of impact to it, but just not sure yet. There is the mapping is kind of incorrect for the mill site. So in terms of what's available online. So there's only one stream that's fish bearing that goes along the outside of the road. So that buffer would be clipped to the road either way. And I believe that is it. So that's kind of the summary of the code changes.
All right, Councilman Johnson, you have a question?
Yeah, on the previous slide, we'd also asked about the roundhouse at the Big Train Museum and that also would not be impacted was my understanding.
Councilman Cotton, do you have a question?
Yes, I just had a question for Director Davis. So from what I was hearing on the ordinance that the single-family residence, the maximum footprint was 250 square feet, but in the economic development letter from the Planning Commission and signed by yourself also, it was 500 square feet. So I just wanted to double check that it's the 250 maximum square footage?
So any addition that somebody would propose or expansion to like a deck or adding a shed or something like that backyard with the new buffers, they could go up to 250 square feet without needing to go out and hire a biologist to do a full-blown critical area study. If they were proposing to go over that, it would require a critical areas review. The Planning Commission had recommended that we increase that to 500 square feet, and the CD committee decided to keep that at the 250
Okay.
square feet.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Johnson?
And a little more background was that originally what was recommended from the best available science was 0 square feet. So no additions, patios or anything like that. Then after several months of work, staff and Fish and Wildlife were able to come to sort of a compromise of the 250 square feet. Planning Commission did want to try to go beyond that to back up to the 500, but at CD committee, where we landed was that the direction from the RCW is to meet the best available science, which based on what we've got was at the 250, and trying to go beyond that could run us afoul of Fish and Wildlife.
Great, thank you.
No pun intended.
Right. Different kind of foul.
All right, any other further discussion? All right, this being first reading tonight, we'll move on. That'll be a motion for action on the next one.
Thank you.
Next is Agenda Bill 25-104, ordinance certifying an increase in property taxes. Can you bring the agenda bill up and go to the introduction? The city of Snoqualmie requires a regular levy in the amount of $8,891,035, which includes a 0.82% increase in property tax revenue in the amount of $71,946 from the previous year in order to discharge the expected expenses and obligations of the city of Snoqualmie. Again, this is for discussion this evening and motion and action in our next council meeting. Is there any discussion tonight in regards to this? All right. Did you,
Good evening, Council. Jana Walker, Budget Manager. I do have a presentation regarding this, but it is a companion ordinance to agenda item 14. I don't know if council's amenable to reading them both before I dive into my presentation, or what the preference is.
let's just go ahead and do the presentation.
Okay. Okay, so just a little bit of background on property taxes in the city. State of Washington uses a budget-based property tax system, which means that the levy is decided after the total budgeted levy, the goodness, I don't even know the number, million that you just read. So that amount is established first. And then we move on to determine the city levy rate, which the property owner must pay based on the total assessed valuation of all properties within the city. So it's a little bit backwards than some other states handle property taxes. Now, there are some limitations, as I just mentioned. The first is the allowable increase percentage that restricts how much we can raise our levy every year. And that was enacted due to some concerns about tax levies rising faster than inflation. So we are limited to a 1% increase every year. The legally allowable levy amount represents a ceiling that the city of Snoqualmie cannot exceed. So we will never increase more than that allowable percentage increase or the rate of inflation each year, whichever one is lower. So 1% is a ceiling. It's not something that we're guaranteed every year. Additionally, if there's new construction, that doesn't fall under the 1%. Any new construction would be assessed separately and added into the city as additional property tax revenue. Now, we don't have to pass an increase. That first ordinance that you read is the increase ordinance. Council could instead decide to certify that ordinance with a 0% increase, and that would allow us to bank our capacity. So at a future date, we could once again go back and use it. We are not proposing that we would bank this year. We are proposing that we would enact that maximum allowable increase that we are allowed. So our two actions that we are recommending is the increase ordinance. Our increase this year is 0.82%. It's not that exact 1%, which would be 71.9 thousand. And that is what we estimated we would, approximately what we estimated we would increase when we made the biennial budget in 2024 for the years 2025 and 2026. And then our next step would be to certify the regular property taxes to King County so that we can actually levy our property taxes. So our estimated property tax for 2026, you can see the comparison here. Last year, we had a regular levy of $8.72 million. And this year, if we add our increase of approximately 72,000, we add the new construction that King County is estimating of 10,000. And then we also have a utility value estimate of 86,000. We would come up with a total regular levy of 8.89. Now you can see that highlighted value for utility value is yellow. We don't really anticipate receiving that. but we have to include it in our ordinance so that we don't miss it. Sometimes the state updates those utility values after they submit all the other data to us. And so if we didn't include it, then we would miss that levy for next year and going forward. So it's an estimation, not likely to occur in this year, but it's a possibility. So we've included it. Another question we get asked is, why isn't the levy increase percentage equal to 1% when we know that inflation was higher than 1% in the last year? And that is the way that RCW dictates how we calculate that 1%. We calculate it based on our highest lawful levy, which in 2025 was $8.71 million. We multiply that by the increase and come up with 87,000. And then we subtract out our prior year refunds. And that gives us the numerator of the equation. And then we kind of do the opposite in the bottom. We add those refunds back in, so our denominator gets a little bit larger, resulting in an amount that's slightly less than 1%. So how does that total levy rate that we're hoping for, how does that tie into your actual rate that is assigned to your property? It really depends on the assessed valuation. All things being equal, if we maybe banked our capacity this year and that levy rate stayed the same, if the assessed value went up, you would actually see the levy rate on your property go down. Usually it does go up because of the way that property values are moving with our levy, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that rate will always go up. You may see it fluctuate from year to year. And currently we're estimating that the regular levy rate for 2026 would be 1.67108 per $1,000 of assessed valuation. So what does that mean for a property tax owner? If that $72,000 increase were approved, you can see in this table how much that would mean for each property owner. If an assessed value of a home is $700,000, all things being equal, which they never are, that increase for that homeowner on an annual basis would be $9.56. And you can see we've included the largest estimation there at $1.5 million assessed valuation for a home. Their estimated 2026 increase from their previous, the tax paid in 2025 would be $20.48, and that is an annual figure. So where does this money go? We get a small chunk of it, and the rest of it is spread throughout the state and schools. The city of Snoqualmie gets 18 cents of every dollar that a citizen would pay in property taxes. 14 cents would go to King County. 34 cents goes to Snoqualmie Valley School District, and then 24 cents goes to the state school fund. And then we have 10 cents going to other smaller items, Port of Seattle, Flood Control District, Emergency Medical Systems, libraries, etc. Of that 18 cents, we use that to support, in large part, public safety. Over half of that amount goes towards public safety, about 5 cents for police and 5 cents for fire. 3 cents would support administration. 3 cents would support parks, streets, and maintenance. And then the remaining 2 cents would support community development, court services, human services, and other items.
Minute, Councilor Benson, you have a question?
Yeah, I love that diagram. We see that every year. Does it change? Do any of the numbers change on it?
We recalculate them every year, but since it's rounded to cents, I don't think that they've changed in substance since I started doing this. But there would be a 0.05, 1.8 one year.
Right.
So slight changes. Maybe in future years we'll see larger shifts depending on council's directives and goals. So how much will you pay in property taxes next year? I wish I could give everyone a very straightforward answer, but it really depends. Our tax system is complex. It depends on other jurisdictions and what levies they choose to do or choose not to do, whether they bank capacity, whether they have an excess levy, voter approved levy. It also depends on the valuation of your property and how it changes in relation to your neighboring properties, both within Snoqualmie and in the larger King County region. That's the bulk of the money portion, but I want to hit on some important things for those who may have limited incomes. And things have changed over the last couple years, so it's definitely worth looking at if you're a senior citizen or disabled individual who has income limitations, it's very worth looking into whether you apply because the income limitation has risen in the last couple of years. But you do need to own and occupy your residence for over 6 months per year to qualify for these exemptions. And this is an exemption, meaning that it doesn't need to be paid back ever. You need to be either a senior citizen, at least age 61 before the year begins, a disabled individual, or a veteran with a service-connected disability, or a surviving spouse of someone who had such a reduction. The annual limit currently is 84,000. It does change year to year though, so it's worth going on to taxrelief.kingcounty.gov to see if you apply. And then a very important thing to note is that you can get a refund. So currently in 2023, if you realize today, oh, I actually was eligible to get an exemption in 2023, you have until April of 2026 to apply for that. So it's definitely worth going back and looking and seeing if this situation applies to you. And then once you apply for an exemption, it lasts for 6 years. So it's a really great benefit for those citizens who need it. There are also deferrals. Essentially, a deferral is that what you would have paid in property taxes is deferred as a lien on your home, an interest-bearing lien on your home. So if you're unable to pay taxes right now, you can save that tax for a future date when maybe you sell your home or maybe your income situation changes. To qualify for that, you need to own and occupy the residence for at least 9 months per year with delinquent property taxes. And you would either need to be a senior citizen, age 60 or older, retired because of a disability, or a surviving spouse of someone who had a reduction. And the income limit is slightly different. And I would recommend, if you have any questions, going onto this website, calling them. I called to ask a couple of questions this year. They were very responsive and helpful to work through my questions. And then there's also just a limited income deferral for those individuals who have owned and occupied their property for 5 or more years, live in their home as of January 1 of the current year, and occupy the home for at least 6 months during the application year. The income limitations are slightly lower, $57,000. And then also something to note for all of these deferrals that you do need to apply every single year. The county isn't going to put a lien on your home if you apply 1 year and then the next year you forget and don't make any changes. This is a reapply every year for the deferrals. And these are the numbers you would call, the website, and also a place to email if you have questions about that. So our next steps, we did just have a public hearing and a first reading of the ordinance. Presentation and question time comes right when I click the next slide. And then on November 24th, we would have the second reading of the ordinance, brief summary and question time, and potential adoption by council. That is my presentation, if there are any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from council at this time? Very thorough presentation. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And along with that, there's Agenda Bill 25105, Property Tax Levy Ordinance. Can we go ahead and bring that up? Annually, council adopts an ordinance levying a regular property tax amount as described in RCW 35A 33050 and RCW 84522020. The city of Snoqualmie uses the amount of regular property tax collected to fund important services such as police, fire, parks, street maintenance, in addition to other necessities. Keep in mind this is for introduction tonight. No action be taken tonight, but this is a sister ordinance to the discussion we just had. Any further questions or discussion tonight? All right, hearing none, we'll move on with the agenda and we'll bring that up again next council for adoption. All right, with that, we'll move on to Agenda Bill 25107, 2025-2026 mid-biennium amendment. Go ahead and bring that up and we'll talk the introduction. The purposes of the ordinance to amend the 2025-2026 biennial budget and to provide the city with the appropriation necessary to the account for the dissolution of the North Bend Police Services Agreement, the adoption of the utility rate study, city expenditures rising at a pace greater than inflation, project amendments, and other various expenditures throughout the city. And again, this is first reading tonight, with adoption to occur in our next council meeting if we so choose. All right, Budget Mayor Walker, or Budget Manager, gave you a promotion. Budget Manager Jenna is here to answer any questions we might have.
Let me share my screen again. Okay. So we're going to go over each of these amendments in detail. What we aren't going to discuss, because it was done at our special meeting earlier, is go over the 10-year forecast and the budget, the economic status surrounding this. So this is more detailed about each amendment that we're proposing. Overall, the citywide appropriation, we are recommending a reduction in appropriation of 16.1 million and a reduction in revenues of $19.8 million. For the general fund specifically, that reduction is 1.15 million and the reduction in revenue is 1.74 million. Our first amendment relates to the North Bend Police Services Agreement. We made substantial revisions across the general fund and also the internal service fund so that we could make the adjustments needed to move police officers out of the North Bend fund, or more like administration out of the North Bend fund and into the general fund. And there were some sergeants as well that were moving into the general fund. So we've adapted, we've adjusted, we've reduced some employees. And I am going to go just a little bit into detail regarding that. We have the attachments for this agenda bill are hidden behind my screen share button. Hold on.
We have the attachments.
Yeah, we have the,
Don't we have all the attachments? Aren't they?
You do. I
Yeah.
was gonna bring it up on the screen. Oh, you know what? I think I accidentally closed Amendment 18, or Attachment 8. One moment. Okay, looking at this amendment in detail, you can kind of get oh. A thousand pardons. I thought I was sharing my whole screen. I'm gonna try that again. There we go. So you can get a little bit of a sense of what's happening in this. Our first column, you can see the fund or classification is in this column, the first column. And then next we have salary and benefit adjustments. And in total, we are decreasing our salary and benefit adjustments by 910,000 approximately. And that does include reducing North Bend's FTE count by 14.25 individuals. And part of that is we no longer need some of them for North Bend, part of them moving into the Snoqualmie general fund. So we're seeing a little bit of both of that happening, some increases and decreases. We've also made some supplies adjustments. This is for 2025 of 198,000. We've reduced services by 1.8 million. And that is not, that sounds like such a high number, but what's happening is that you're seeing those salary and benefit charges that are related to internal service. You're seeing the reduction there repeated because now we no longer charge out for those expenses. So it looks very high, but it's not, part of it is replicating that salary and benefit. And then we're also seeing a slight reduction in capital for $81,000. If you go on to 2026, you can see that salary and benefit adjustment is greater because the North Bend Fund is ending as of March 31st, 2026. So it's much sharper decrease for our salaries and benefits. Supplies and adjustments holds similar at 158,000, and then services adjustments, once again, is 1.9 million, so very close to what it was, and a capital reduction of $360,000. Much of that is within the North Bend Police Services Fund. Or, oh, those are other adjustments, sorry. So we're seeing two things there. There's the $240,000 decrease, which is a payment to North Bend. As part of our contract, we agreed to pay them that money that we were more or less holding to purchase vehicles, and that will be paid back to the city of North Bend. And then when the time of the contract runs out, we are expecting that we will have a little bit of fund balance remaining, about $120,000, and that will be moved into our general fund. So you're seeing all of these changes. The North Bend adjustments are summarized right here. And that brings us back to our total,
Sure.
which we have.
Councilman Washington?
Thank you, Manager Walker. Sorry, can you just go back to the spreadsheet just real quickly? Just out of,
Mayor Walker.
or Mayor Walker.
I
I beg your pardon.
Go ahead.
Just curious, so in the capital or other adjustment,
Mm-hmm.
it's actually, looks like it's coming out of, if I'm reading this correctly, fire and emergency management for the 80,000.
That's correct.
What would it be?
So we planned on buying a fire brush truck to help with wildland type fires and
Mhm.
trails and things like that. We estimated it would be $100,000. Chief Bailey may want to speak to this, but they found a used vehicle in the area that's under $20,000. We're hoping that we can outfit that up to the standards that we need for $20,000. So that's currently the plan. He
Okay.
probably has much better information, more details if you're interested.
Oh, that suffices. Thank you.
Okay, so that covers amendments 1A, 1B, and 1C. If we move down to number 2, liability and property insurance, the goal of this amendment is to increase our budget for citywide liability and property insurance. We've seen that increase about over 20% for the last 3 years. And in 2025, we believe that we're $63,000 under over budget. And in 2026, we're estimating that we'll be $117,000 over budget. So this amendment, if you add those two numbers up, you're not going to get quite to $254,000. And what you're seeing there is that we take that insurance and then we spread it across the city through our internal service allocations. So because we're charging more for insurance, we will also charge all of our entities outside of the general fund that same amount, not the same amount, but the appropriate amount for what we estimate that they're using. So that will go into utilities, into our ER and our equipment replacement and repair fund, and throughout the city as necessary. And that's for $254,000. There will also be some revenue, about $74,000 of revenue coming into the general fund, because we pay that out, then we charge it out to our various funds, and then they pay us back for their portion. Next up, we have number 3 is workers' compensation, which is our labor and industries insurance. This amendment increases the budget for these items. Over the last 3 years, it's increased by 52% for city public safety, which includes our fire and our police departments. And then it's about 14% for other operating divisions. So we've increased that across the city. Over the 2 years, it's expected to be $164,000 increase above what we budgeted. So it's a very substantial increase, and we've seen increases in a lot of insurance, and I don't know if that will reach a ceiling where it kind of levels out, but it's pretty shocking what we've seen over the last few years.
Wait, Councilmember Benson?
Is there no point at which this is just basic piracy? Because I mean, because everybody's getting. Why are there there's limits on what they can charge you on a credit card? There's limits, but you know, I've never made a insurance claim in my life, and I've got my insurance flying through the ceiling. It looks like the same thing's happening to the city.
So
It's your fault.
let's take, I want to, well, me just say what I'm gonna say. Can we have a discussion in F&A if there are any discretionary changes on our part that might affect those rates? And just to have a discussion, I'm not proposing any action, just want to understand, are there some choices that could be made that would affect the rate, but we probably shouldn't? Or maybe we should. Let's have the discussion in F&A to kind of address your concern. We can't well, I hate to say it, the insurance company isn't going to charge what the insurance companies charge, but there may be some other things we can do as far as deductible or whatnot. I don't know that has effect there. So we'll have that discussion in F&A and bring it back next time.
Okay, I'm gonna allow it.
Thank you, sir.
Go ahead, Budget Mayor.
Need a gavel. So amendment number 4, I'm going to turn the time over to City Attorney Burke for this $140,000 amendment.
Thank you. So good evening. I'm your city attorney, Dina Burke. So sound legal advice is necessary to protect the interests of the city. It ensures less financial risk and exposure later. I'm the sole in-house attorney at the city of Snoqualmie, and being an in-house city attorney is kind of like being a medical doctor, which is you're a general practitioner. So issues arise that need specialty nuanced care. And there can also be moments where it's a triage situation where a lot of issues are all coming in at the same time. So similar to being a doctor, there can be referrals to like a cardiologist or dermatologist that are those people that specialize in that one really nuanced area. And that's kind of similar to being a city attorney. So in a similar vein, we hire specialists to deal with certain nuanced legal issues where these are attorneys that maybe they've spent their entire career focused on a really unique area of law. Outside counsel also offers flexibility where they can be available when there's that surge of issues or a surge in a specialty area. I joined the city in December of 2024. And then in 2025, we faced a multitude of intense emergent legal issues. And for the purposes of this conversation, this is going to be a very like high level overview. Transparency is a really important value that the city has, but engaging in legal discussions, depending on, should generally be held in executive session. So this is more just kind of a topics overview of what our outside attorneys have been helping us with. So in 2025, one of the issues that we did engage outside counsel with was we had intense negotiations over the police services interlocal agreement with North Bend. That unfortunately did, as you all know and members of the public know, that did result in litigation, which has now been settled. And so that did involve outside attorney expenses. We also had an investigation involving our former police chief that spiraled into 2 lawsuits involving the Public Records Act, where an injunction was sought to prevent the release of certain documents. Outside counsel was necessary to assist with those 2 lawsuits and also to assist with the expedited legal review of public records in order to get those records out to the media, community, and requesters as soon as possible to have transparency about what had occurred. We also had a right-of-way vacation petition filed with the city, and an outside attorney was hired to represent that position to the staff position to council. We kind of wanted to wall that off so that I was available to provide legal advice to the mayor and council. This right-of-way petition took place over several meetings. And so that did, cause costs to increase. And we are also currently following council's direction to explore potential purchase options, as was directed by council in the final meeting regarding that property. And then Jana, could you please go to the next slide? All right, we're working with outside counsel on the Comcast franchise agreement, which will recoup costs from Comcast for operating in our right of way. While we are engaging in outside counsel with that, we're also hopeful that there will be some cost reimbursement to the city for that. Similar to many cities, we have several ongoing code enforcement cases. Code enforcement is one of those areas where we probably will have new cases coming in. There is one case involving Ladder Properties LLC. That is a case that went to the hearing examiner and then was appealed to King County Superior Court, and it's now being appealed to the Division I Court of Appeals. The city has requested that if we prevail at the Division I Court of Appeals for our attorney's fees to be recouped regarding that appeal. So there is a potential for some recoupment of our outside attorney costs for that case, but it will be up to the court on that. There's an ongoing King County inquest into use of force from a 2022 police case. It's very common for cities when there is a King County inquest. There's attorneys who specialize in those King County inquests. And so we've hired an outside attorney for that, and the inquest is scheduled for the week after Thanksgiving. Protection of city staff is something that I think we have. Not only do we have a legal duty, but I think we also have a moral duty to take it very seriously. There have been some issues that have come up. I won't go into those here in the public, but we have hired outside counsel to ensure prevention of harassment of city staff and to address those issues. There is an ongoing criminal case regarding this that we take very seriously, so I don't want to go into the details in public at this time to protect the integrity of that case. The Snoqualmie Valley Health Hospital expansion is, a program that we really welcome in the city, but there are costs associated with nuanced land use issues regarding the infrastructure upgrades that are necessary. And we've engaged outside land use counsel for that in order to support the development, but also recoup the costs that we're having on our infrastructure. And then next slide, please. We value the partnership that we have with the tribe, but there are unique tribal law issues that have come up. We have outside counsel for that. Tribal law is an area that some attorneys, that is a very specialized area of law. The strategic plan has affordable housing as a large component of that. So looking ahead to 2026, as we are looking at affordable housing, that could bring up specialty land use and other areas where we're anticipating potentially using outside counsel. Similarly with the mill site development, we have a development agreement with them that could bring up some nuanced land use questions. And then surprises. I wish I had that crystal ball where I could predict what legal issues are going to come up in 2026. I can't predict those. So that does make budgeting for outside counsel difficult, but I'm hoping that we have a calm 2026, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, council?
No, but she just jinxed it.
Thank you.
Moving on to our next amendment, number 5 is the fire department health insurance. This amendment is about our budget estimations. When we have empty positions, we assume certain things. We don't assume that everyone we hire will be at the very top level of health insurance. We assume mid to high range. In this instance, we had about 5 new hires, and on average, they were that top tier health insurance level. So this amendment is geared towards getting us back to fully fund those health insurance needs of our newly hired fire insurance folks. Or I'm stuck on insurance. Our firefighters. And that is a $38,000 amendment, and it would be ongoing. Our next amendment, number 6, I'm going to have Chief Bailey represent. It's regarding an AED replacement, and it is $13.6 thousand of a one-time appropriation increase.
Tempted to cut him off again.
No, he's armed with an electric device. We're not gonna cut him off again tonight.
I am at the pleasure of the council. Jenna just wanted me to talk a little bit about what this one was about. Our defibrillators that we currently have in the department are AEDs, used for cardiac arrest. We're over 10 years old, outdated, couldn't get parts for them. King County was working on getting replacements, and they dictated what kind we had to get. That's the model there that they're requiring us to get. Unfortunately, they're rather spendy. To get 2 of them is about $20,000. So part of our King County EMS levy, which you saw just was passed, I believe it's supposed to pass last week. We get a bucket of money to use for different things. Some of it goes into the general fund, about 180, 200,000 to pay for salaries. There's also one called core services, which is used for equipment. And it's about $7,000 to $8,000 a year that we get from that fund. And we're allowed to build it up from year to year if we don't use it for the life of the levy. So I'd been saving up that money over the last couple of years, waiting for something that needed to be purchased. We were gonna do bulletproof vests, some ballistic stuff, but then this came up, so we were gonna use, we had about $18,000 saved up from that core services to pay for these defibrillators. We are gonna go down from the 4 that we currently have down to 2 to start with. And then next year, we'll probably use the core services fund again to purchase another one. It should be enough. But again, this is something that we had to do. They've been talking about it for a couple of years at King County. Again, they kind of dictated which ones we had to buy. We chose the lesser of the 2. Unfortunately, it's a lot bigger than our other ones, but we chose the lesser of the 2. It's just an expense. These are highly sophisticated machines. But like I said, the good thing is, although it is an appropriation for the budget, this is money that we have saved up. The majority of it is going to be coming from the reimbursement that we get from King County EMS levy funds.
Any questions or volunteers?
We'd have to stop your heart first before it worked.
All right. Politicians, we have no hearts. Hey,
It's not like the tasers, you know, where the police do it on each other.
Well, we could look at your heartbeat.
Thank you, Chief.
Next up is the splash pad operations budget, and I believe we have somebody from Parks and Public Works to represent that, Deputy Director Bennett. This is a $26,000 ongoing, so approximately $13,000 for each year, and then $10,000 in one-time appropriation.
Philip Bennett, Deputy Director, Parks and Public Works. Council, this is in result of it being our first year of running the splash pad. So we didn't know how much water the operation would take. That's an ongoing cost of about $9,500 annually. So that was unanticipated. So that's an ongoing cost. An example of a one-time cost is we extended the fence between the skate park and the splash pad so that somebody on the splash pad wouldn't get hit by a skateboard. And that cost about $8,500. The remainder of the ongoing cost is chemicals such as chlorine, so that we can keep the water safe for residents and residents' children to be there.
Councilman Cotton?
It's, pardon me, is the security or surveillance system, is that going under a different cost allotment? Is that parks or?
We have the equipment. In this moment, I cannot tell you what source that is being purchased from. Jana, do you know? Okay, not sure.
Councilman Johnson?
Yeah, there was one aspect of this that I wanted a little clarity on, and was it that we truly didn't allocate any spending for the water, or was it that we're using more water than what was expended?
More.
Using more. There was, sir, there was an allocation for the ongoing cost of the splash pad, but I believe the water exceeded what was expected.
Okay, just want to make sure that we went over water, not that we didn't plan for any water. More kids are pushing the button than we thought.
Councilman Benson? Oh, wait a minute.
Oh,
Hang on a second.
So it is a recirculatory system. The water that gets carried out on swimsuits has to be made back up, and the water that's used to backwash the filters. And
Stealing the water.
and when the grass failed, there was a lot of mud that got in the system, which required an extra amount of backwashes.
right, but it's we use more water
Correct.
than expected, not that we didn't plan for
But it
any
didn't
water.
matter with the button.
That makes me feel a lot better.
Councilman Benson?
And is the personnel necessary to maintain it within the limits of what we were expecting?
Or has that also increased? Or is that calculated with the water cost?
It is not calculated as part of this amendment. There's been some additional time for staff to work on the system.
But that's not part of this number.
Correct. That is not part of this number.
This is just the stolen water.
And a few other things too. Chlorine. Yeah.
Next, you want parking meters on it. Anyway, any other questions? Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
We also have public defender cost increases. There was a Washington State Supreme Court order that requires that the caps for public defenders decrease. So a defense attorney may not represent as many clients as they might have in the past, and that will result in increased public defender costs. Our newest contract for this, we're estimating that it will be an increase for 2026 alone. This isn't for both years, of $58,000. So that is an amendment that we are requesting.
Councilor Benson?
And is this number, I'm assuming, is adjusted to reflect that we're 9 months out of next year and 12 months out of the following, we're only gonna be policing Snoqualmie?
Yes, these are just Snoqualmie's. I believe that North Bend paid their public defender costs separately, not as a part of our contract within our city.
So are they charging us, how are we charged for public defender services? Is it on an hourly rate or on a case rate?
I believe, go ahead.
Yeah. So the contract that we're going to be bringing forward is going to, at a future FNA, it's 160,000 per year, which I think is like 13,000 and change per month, but that's assuming they don't exceed that case limit that we're bringing forward. So we don't pay them per case. Some public defender contracts are set up like, I'm just making up an example, like $200 or $400 per case.
And based on the budget numbers I've seen historically, it would appear that our last contract, which I did not review before this, was based more on a per case or hourly basis because there was some variability. It wasn't like a one-time amount like this new contract is.
Right, this is a fixed fee not to exceed on the caseload. But if we don't use them, we still pay the same amount.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
And their point would be, if they don't have the cases, they still need to pay their attorneys. There've been some email communications with our chief Faraci about how they've experienced a lot of increases on their end for attorneys compared to years prior.
Okay, it's worthy of additional discussion.
So we gotta go,
Go ahead.
we gotta pay extra in the months that we go over. And the months that we go under, we gotta pay because they gotta get paid.
No, we have a fixed fee. to
No,
a
I
certain
understand. I understand.
well,
There's
it's
a
an
point at,
annual service, not.
there's a
not
point
monthly.
at which we can exceed that fixed fee,
Yep,
but there is no point at which we can be under. So we need a certain level of crime in this city to get our full value of our crime money.
Indigent crime.
Okay.
Indigent crime.
Yeah, that feels like it could be talked about some more.
yeah, I'd like to further
Okay.
discussion at FNA that just,
Right.
yeah.
That'll be coming to the first, I think it's December 2nd FNA committee meeting, and then the December 8th council meeting.
Okay. And just, King County's at a position to know what their overall public defender load is and can balance it across. So I'm, that prior argument, I'm not fully sold on. But bring the contract forward, let's have discussion at FNA, move it forward.
These next amendments do not have anything to do with the general fund. The first one, number 9, is utility fees transfer. This amendment does two things. Oh, wait, this is the fees transfer. Sorry. No, it just does one thing. We had in our non-utility capital fund, 500, about 400 some $1,000 plus interest. We're estimating a little high so that we can transfer a full 500,000 if necessary out of the non-utility capital fund and into the utility capital fund. And the reason we're doing that is because these are marked in our restricted funds as utility fees. So we can't really use them in non-utility capital. We will transfer them so that they can be used for our utility projects. That's a $500,000 one-time transfer. The next one, number 10, is our utility rate study adjustment. As you heard mentioned in our meeting at 6 p.m., we made some estimations in our budget based on the preliminary numbers of the utility rate study. Those numbers adjusted over time until we passed it in May of 2025. And this amendment brings our budget up to the assumptions that we adopted within the utility rate study. And then it also accounts for a couple of other changes, including projects that made quicker progress in 2024 than we expected. It accounts for the fact that we are not issuing a bond in 2025 and we're delaying the Sandy Cove Park bank stabilization project. So a few things like that. The total amount for this amendment is a reduction of $11.2 million, and it's accompanied by a reduction in revenue of $15.01 million. This amendment is detailed in, I think it's the last attachment number 10, and we can go over it if you have any questions.
Sure.
Go ahead, Councilor Johnson.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm wondering is if there's a simple answer to the question I posed at F&A, where there didn't seem to be a simple answer at the time, and I'm wondering if that's had time to cook, where if you add up all the revenues from this whole sheet and all the expenditures, it all balances except for 4 million, which are in line number 10, where we end up 4 million underwater in the utilities. So I was just wondering, is there something that explains where that went and how we're okay?
If you recall, in the utility rate study, we had a choice to fund capital projects with utility fees or with capital bonding. And we made the decision to lean towards capital bonding. So instead of needing to build up our utility fees year upon year, we will instead get that capital in one big hit when we need a bond, or it happens at several points in the utility rate study. So we don't need to save up in the same manner that we originally planned that we needed to. So the revenue isn't lost. We're not experiencing a financial crisis within that utility fund. Those utility funds, instead, we're just realizing that we don't need to keep saving. We will be bonding.
Chair?
Well, sorry, I need to react.
Yeah.
Bond is not how you fund a project. It is how you finance a project. That bond will be reimbursed through the rates. It's just you've committed the rates over the next 20 to 30 years for the duration of that bond. Okay, I'm sorry I gotta split that hair, but it's doesn't fund the project. The utility players still have to fund the project, just over a different time period. All right, I think Councilor Benson has his hand up first.
Yeah, and that was a deliberate decision that we made so that we could more equitably take care of the improvements that we need to make in the utilities, and without getting that huge increase in rates. We still got a healthy increase in rates, but I would disagree with the budget merit. We didn't lean into. We hit hard into bonding that because we wanted to reduce those rates.
Councilor Johnson?
So then out of the $15 reduction in revenue, what someone could do is then add 4 million back in bonds that will then be paid back over the course of the next 20 years. But that 4 million would be in the biennium.
Wow. I'm not sure.
That's the best response I can.
Does that make it balance, and does that sound right?
Well, we won't balance within this biennium. We're not making up that revenue right now.
Right. No, I think what I'm saying is the bonds would then bring in that money temporarily, but we have to pay it back over the next 20 years.
Perfect. Yes. So instead of a steep fee at the beginning, we see a long taper after the project.
So it balances.
And I would reflect on your comment, according to our financial policies, we are at our bonding limit in utilities.
Now we are with this.
With this, we
Yeah,
are.
yeah,
So I agree. We did a little more than lean into it.
yeah. It was necessary.
Max
Yeah.
out the credit card.
Don't say that, no. Particularly when the Department of Ecology gives us a loan at 0.2, 0.3%. So, I mean, staff has done a very good job of finding appropriate bond or other things to fund these things long-term.
Let's just make sure we understand what we're talking about. We're talking about the debt coverage ratio for the most part.
Right.
We don't intend to fall below the 1.5 times in total. So we're adhering to that through the utility rate study. Our bonding capacity, because it is a revenue bond, is generally unlimited overall. So we have restrictions when it comes to general obligation bonds, but these are revenue bonds. You pay back revenue bonds with the utility rates, right? You collect overall. But there isn't necessarily a top restriction that we have to stay under for the most part, because you can always generate additional revenue generally to support that. So
Correct. There's not a restriction from the market. They will loan you as much money as you want. There is an internal restriction by our financial management policy of what we are comfortable in doing that.
correct.
All right.
Okay, these next items are more like housekeeping. They're all associated with an agenda bill, so I'm going to move through them rather quickly. For number 11, it's a stormwater system plan, AB 24-117 on October 28th, 2024, was associated with a stormwater system plan update. And we didn't quite budget for that as high as we needed to when we created the budget. This happened a few months after that, a couple months after that. So we're requesting $77,000 in accordance with that agenda bill. We also had a project amendment on Eagle Lake Reservoir and a loan associated with it. Both of those increased. The project value increased, or the project cost increased, and the Department of Ecology also gave us a larger loan, a low interest loan. And that's AB 25-059. We're requesting 1.1 million in accordance with that agenda bill. Amendments 13A and 13B are moving $100,000 out of the utility main and drainage program and into the water reclamation facility in accordance with Agenda Bill AB 25-085. And then finally, Agenda Bill Amendment 14 is associated with the Snoqualmie Valley Hospital Expansion Project. And they committed to fund the design work for this project, and that's $99,000. And we discussed this in AB 25-079. And that is a total of $16.14 million in reductions in appropriation that we are requesting.
Thank you for making it through. Are there any other questions from council? Again, this is first reading tonight. We'll enact this in next council meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
But we're going to read all that again, right?
Next time.
If you want. All right, final ordinance this evening is Agenda Bill 25-095, ordinance amending the minimum licensing threshold for out-of-city businesses in SMC 5.40.15B. This is a second reading. Let's go to the agenda bill if you could, please. All right, good. This ordinance seeks to amend SMC 5.04.015B as required by RCW 35.90.080 by increasing the minimum licensing threshold for out-of-city businesses from $2,000 to $4,000, under which an out-of-city business would not have to pay business licensing fee, and establish an increase in the threshold every 4 years based on the change in June to June consumer price index during that period. Move to approve ordinance 1308, amending the minimum licensing threshold for out-of-city businesses in SMC 5.04.015B. May I have a second?
Second.
All right. Note second by Councilmember Watton. Or Council Benson, sorry. Could have called you Botten. Right. And I think we had discussion last time in regards, there's a need for discussion tonight? Drew's ready. All right, with that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion moves unanimously. Thank you. I forget.
Chair,
Yeah,
I would respectfully request a quick 5-minute break.
Quick or 5 minutes?
Quick 5-minute break.
is council amenable to a 5-minute recess?
Aye.
Any objections? All right, 5-minute recess. All right, let's reconvene the council meeting for tonight. In lieu of some other, we're down into committee reports at this stage. I'm gonna skip down to F&A real quick, considering some of the attendance tonight.
Chair, move to amend the agenda to move F and A up to right now.
Yep. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, let's move on to Agenda Bill 25-100, resolution adopting the 2025 strategic plan. You go ahead and bring that up.
Wait a minute.
Or tell you what, I'm just gonna make the motion on a moat without reading that stuff. We have significant changes coming both in this seat and in council. And I motion that we, at this stage, table the strategic plan to the F&A for consideration of the upcoming council and administration following the first of the year.
Second.
Any discussion or? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Thank you for the work you've done. It's just we're in a time of transition, and I want to acknowledge that transition and get the input of new council and new administration. Thank you. Sorry to keep you here all night long for that.
We thought you'd be interested.
Well, I should have, I moved it all the way up to,
Probably should have moved it up earlier.
and did we move the personnel policies?
No, we moved number 23
moved
was the one
24.
where we removed.
All right, since we moved F&A, we'll keep going down to F&A. So with that, let's move on to Agenda Bill 25-098, resolution related to personnel policies. That one, if you'll bring up. On September 22nd, 2025, City Council adopted the new personnel policy manual, which included several standalone policies previously adopted through resolution. The purpose of the agenda bill is to repeal all prior resolution relating to those policies. Move to adopt resolution 1726, repealing all prior resolutions relating to personnel policies. May I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion on this item tonight? Again, this is housekeeping. We've moved all this into our personnel policies. We can take them out of the resolution and out of the code. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion moves, proceeds unanimously. Let's move on to Agenda Bill 25-096, resolution adopting 026 salary schedule for non-represented management and professional employees. Please bring up the agenda bill. The purpose of the agenda bill is for consideration and approval of the 2026 salary schedule for non-represented management and professional employees. And let's go back down to, proposed motion. I'm gonna go with option 2. Move to approve resolution 1732 with a 2026 salary schedule that includes a 2.72 COLA for non-represented management and professional employees. May I have a second?
Second.
We can go back and amend to option 1 or 3 if you so choose. Drew, are you getting ready to talk?
I can talk, but I'm also happy to let the chair guide and as well as council, if they want me to speak to it, I'm more than
Okay.
happy to.
Go ahead, Councilman Johnson.
I think that this is in line with what option 2 is in line with what council did last time. So I'm in favor of option 2.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I,
All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Drew. Where am I now? All right, we'll go back up to the top and we'll go to public safety. Let me get back there.
Informational.
Chief?
All
Can
right.
I
Yes, sir.
can I
Councilman Renfro.
suggest that maybe we all have this report available to us? We can read it.
Right, the report is for information only.
Yeah.
Is there any discussion or we'll take it and we'll read it? Hearing no discussion, we'll move on. Are there any other items for public safety?
there are none. Thank you.
All right, any report from community development?
Nothing at this time, Your Honor.
All right, move Parks and Public Works. Agenda Bill 25099, agreement for consultant services with Herrera for community-based social marketing campaign, National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, NPDES. Isn't that 2? Or is that 1?
Say again, sorry.
Isn't it NPD? Never mind. It's, I'm splitting the hair.
This too.
Yeah, it is 2. All right, Councilman Vincent, would you please read the introduction to motion?
Sure. This agenda bill seeks council approval to select Herrera Consulting for professional support services of the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System stormwater permit. The proposed Phase 2 scope of work is a continuation and expansion of the contract that council approved in May 2025. This scope of work is to run the community-based social marketing campaign through 2026, completing the education and outreach requirements of the MPDS stormwater permit. Move to approve the agreement for consultant services with Herrera Environmental Consultants for community-based social marketing campaign.
Second.
All right. You want to key off on this one?
Absolutely. So project engineer, or Patrick Fry, project engineer with the city of Snoqualmie. I unfortunately have a presentation for you guys. So I'm sorry, I will try to run through it rapidly, but it is important nonetheless. So also with regards to this presentation, I am asking you guys to make a decision on or between 2 different options for this community-based social marketing program. So just keep that in mind while I'm running through this. But first, a bit of background. So this, like mentioned, this is the NPDES stormwater permit requirement. That's National Pollution Discharge Elimination System. It's Ecology's permit essentially for them to handle. They disseminate to the cities to manage it. And as part of that component in that permit, there is a behavior change campaign. The requirements of that behavior change campaign are in exhibits 3 and 4 of your agenda packet, but I won't bore you with all that information. But the general gist of it is that as our municipality, we have to perform a behavior change campaign where we're trying to change our constituents' stormwater behavior that might be a little bit polluting for the better. So it's trying to just essentially change whoever your constituents are to make them less polluting. And that's vague because that same requirement applies from Snoqualmie to Seattle or SeaTac or, you know, these other jurisdictions that have totally different populations than us. But for us and for that 2019-2024 permit, we went with a natural lawn care campaign. That's because our constituents it's a bedroom community where we have a whole lot of lawns. We have a whole lot of folks that care about their lawns. And so that's where our focus was.
we felt that that was the biggest target audience for us. And so for this contract, 2024 through 2029, meeting that requirement, we are proposing to continue that campaign. So improving on that natural lawn care campaign, not changing to focusing on automotive industries or anybody like that, sticking with that bedroom community target audience and trying to just improve how folks might manage their lawn just so it's more favorable towards the stormwater purposes, but still maintain a lawn. So it's not trying to turn everybody into, you know, rockery lawns or anything like that. It's maintaining essentially the status quo, but maybe just a little bit greener practices. And so the first option, I'm going to call it the citywide natural lawn care campaign. It's so it's going to be encompassing the whole city for this campaign. And so to do that, we would start by creating a central demonstration lawn. I put community park question mark there because we want it to be in a central location where lots of folks would see it. And this would be a demonstration lawn, just like what it says. It's a lawn that is being manicured with natural lawn care techniques so that folks can go and look at it and say, oh, that's what it looks like when you overwater or aerate the lawn or, you know, do all these other practices that are good for the environment. But then it would also be a good location where there's a billboard to give you a little bit more information, maybe have pamphlets, handouts, things like that. It would also be a great place where we would do a demonstration event. And so that demonstration event would be having a professional there that can speak to anybody that wants to come by, listen, and answer any questions to that effect. We'd be creating online information, you know, so there'd be a web page that everybody can use and reference to. We would also be sending out mailers, you know, outreach via social media and just direct outreach to folks that got involved in that 2019-2024 campaign. We already have a few folks that, you know, showed interest back then, so reaching out to them already. And then with this campaign, we would be aiming to create what we're calling a basin versus basin competition. So that's just getting folks involved. And so pledging to use natural lawn care techniques, and there would be a competition of the number of people pledging in different basins. And so this would be a good way to educate where everybody lives, what basin, where all their stormwater goes, and then just some friendly competition between those two basins. So like I mentioned, there would be a pledge. We're calling it the Falls to Sound pledge, but really it's just a pledge to use natural lawn care techniques. I said including a yard sign question mark in there as well, just because there might be a little bit of lawn sign fatigue. So that would just be a further discussion item, but that would be the idea, is maybe have some lawn signs letting everybody know, letting other neighbors know that, you know, you are supporting the natural lawn care program. We would obviously work with the ROA, make sure that any suggestions that we're making also adheres to their standards. And then there would be awards for the winners of this competition. Think free aeration rental for the neighborhood, something like that. Again, promoting natural lawn care techniques. Well, how much does it cost? Short of it is about $81,000. And how would we pay for it? Well, first, I'm going to just say that it's already paid, or it's already budgeted for, I should say. This isn't, you're not going to see this in Jana's report next year. This has been planned for. But it would be coming out of the stormwater operations budget. And on top of that, we do get an ecology grant. It's a biennial grant for $130,000 to administer this permit. And so we typically use it for items like this, this being the community-based social marketing campaign, behavior change campaign, or the other items that we have to develop, like the stormwater management action plan, which you'll be seeing in a couple of years from now. And so of that $130,000 that I'm saying is getting used for this, there's already been $68,000 allocated. We're going to spend an additional, as proposed here, $81,000, which would mean this would be affecting the budget to the stormwater operations about $20,000. Again, already budgeted for, but that would be the hit that we would see on our side. And I put the asterisk next to the ecology grant because we don't have to use it for this project per se. We have to use it just in any way that is implementing the NPDES permit. So that's just why there's that asterisk there. Before I move on to, I should say that when I presented this to committee a few weeks back, the committee they liked the idea, but they did ask that I sharpen my pencil a little bit. See if we could bring that cost down in light of the utility rates that went up. And, how much of this is completely necessary? Are we going, way above and beyond, or, really just kind of finding out, what a baseline would be? Is that a general? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so that's when I came up with second option here. I met with our consultants. We decided, okay, what would it look like to sharpen our pencils a bit? And so we came up with a reduced scope option that I'm calling the Targeted Natural Lawn Care Campaign. And so this would just be doing a similar idea, but rather than it being a citywide project, it's targeted. And so this is just an example. We are not settled on a neighborhood, but just for example, I highlighted that end of Douglas and Silent Creek. That's a neighborhood back there. It's all draining to a singular basin. It's a tight knit community back there. So just seemed like a good one for example purposes. We would still be creating a demonstration lawn. Rather than it being a centralized location like Community Park, it would be Azalea Park in this example because it's right there. This would actually be a good time too, because we would have a control. So we would have, the ones that we sent all of the mailers to, all the homes that we sent mailers to, but we would also allow to use an adjacent neighborhood as a control to measure our success, which is a large component of this required behavior change campaign. We would still be doing all the same items of, mailer, social media, direct outreach, false sound pledge, working with ROA, all that. So we'd be sticking with all those items, but it's going to be targeted. So we're not going to be sending mailers to every home. It would only be to those folks in those neighborhoods, and same thing with outreach.
Councilmember Washington?
Thank you, Chair. So, thank you. So working with the ROA, would the city still have line of sight and control?
Sorry, say that again.
Would the city still have the control over the actual campaign?
Yes. So
Okay.
we would control it. We just want to make sure that if we're suggesting that we overwater lawns, or maybe, don't cut it every 2 days or something like that, whatever ideas that we come up with, we just want to make sure that the ROA says, yes, that is fine. They're on board with that. And if they want to get involved a little bit, then that's great as well. But we haven't had the discussions yet. So I don't know what their interest level would be.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Yep. And then lastly, this would be a really good test for the next permit cycle. I can guarantee that in the 2029-2034 permit, there is going to be a behavior change component of it. It's going to be a requirement. And so if we did this route, this option, then, for that 29 permit, we could be looking at just taking essentially all the work that we did for this and just expanding it to the whole city. So this would be a really good test case for that. So what does this reduced scope option cost? It's about $73,000. So it would be an $8,000 in cost savings by going with this reduced scope option. Same chart as before, so I won't dive through every line items, but the budgetary impact is about $12,000 now, as shown to this. Again, budgeted for, so you won't be seeing Jana talk about this next year, but it is a hit to the 403. Oh, yep.
Councilor Washington?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So yeah, just looking at, so it's like an $8,000 reduction, but it's a much larger footprint with the first option. Is that just economies of scale?
No, it's really that the brunt of the cost is in creating the report, creating all of the materials that have to go in it, creating that website. We're still creating that demonstration lawn. That's really the brunt of the effort there. And so really the economy, or expanding it out to the whole city, the big cost there is just mailers, additional signs, potentially a little bit more outreach, planning for a little bit more community events, just more audience, which all of those items are not huge ticket items. And so that's why it's $8,000.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Benson, your hand up?
Yeah, I was just gonna, share my opinion that I think we should go with the citywide plan. I think it's just more bang for the buck.
Yeah,
And,
it's-
nobody can feel left out of the whole idea, and hopefully potentially have a wider impact as well. You know, if we're trying to do something positive and green with lawns, and if we can get that wider impact across the city, that's great. The only thing that I would want to make sure that we had was some kind of a way to measure the variables, you know, maybe before we do the program, to have good numbers on what the basins are looking like, what their chemical levels are during the time, whatever you got to do. But I think that there's far more bang for the buck for the other one. Although I totally understand that we want to keep costs in stormwater down because it affects rates, but this does not seem like the place to skimp.
Okay, so I'll speak because I was the other side. Okay? This is not a graded event. This is a pass-fail. Okay? With Department of Ecology. Both of these pass. Now, we struggled to bring those rates down and they were still uncomfortable. At no time do I now see that I am not relieved of the responsibility to try to drive these costs down and these rates down. Okay, this may just be $8,000, which is 10% of the total, and a reduced impact. But as you said, this is a pass fail. They're gonna come back. This does leave us some options for what we do next. But again, I'm more, guys, we need to get into the motion or the behavior of watching these dollars and bringing them down. These rates are still too high. We heard it from the public. We had no choice from what we had on our plate to do the rates we did. But I'm still a proponent that if I can get a pass at $8,000 less, I'm gonna go for the $8,000 less. Go ahead, Council President.
I think that there are other benefits to consider, that there is value to this program, and there is value to better lawn care practices in our city. And I think that value needs to be considered as well.
Councilor Cotton?
I concur with Councilmember Benson. I feel that we need to do a citywide approach because of, the natural aspects of reducing the chemicals, not only for the catch basins and such and the stormwater, but also for like getting the information to the downtown area, because being in the floodplain, we can't put anything that can seep into the groundwater and into the river. So, we need to make sure that people are practicing this citywide, not just a targeted neighborhood up on the ridge.
Councilor Watton?
What is the time constraint that we need to act on this now? Or is this something that we can come back to in a couple months? What's the cost to the city?
So there's a couple things. We do have to begin the campaign. We had to start it in September of this year, which we did. We just had to have a draft plan, that's done. But just wanted to but then in 2026, you have to be providing updates to ecology, essentially. And so we can't be sitting on our laurels, or they start threatening fines on us. That being said, if you're asking what's the harm of waiting until January to make a decision, the biggest heartburn I get from that is that we want to be implementing this for spring of next year, because that's when everybody's caring about lawn. And so if we can't start getting everything ready for the campaign until bringing this to council in January, which would mean that contracts are signed, call it February 1st. It leaves a really short time frame to get things ready before the April or so that everybody's trying to get out there, work on their yard. But that from a pass-fail standpoint from ecology, there's not a lot of heartburn to get started in January, though.
That's a follow-up.
Councilmember Johnson,
If there's a follow-up.
do you have follow?
Yeah, just follow up. Given the situation, I would concur with Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Holloway on using the lower number and use it as an inspiration for others to follow suit with.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yeah, this is a close call for me, because I
Okay.
can easily see it both ways. I think there are really good arguments on both sides here. I think that where I'm landing is that if, it's a big if, but if everyone took better care of nature, I think that that would reduce costs and spending and infrastructure, et cetera, across the board. And as such, I think that I'm going to lean on the side of let's go for the whole city to encourage all of our residents to try to do a little bit better. Myself included.
Councilmember Washington?
Yeah, I didn't kind of favor that argument. My argument would be more on the side of $8,000. I mean, 10% of the cost of the option one, but what about the overall value? If you can truly impact all of the city, I mean, there's a cost savings there potentially. So I have to consider that.
Okay, Councilmember Benson, do you want to make a motion to modify this to be option one?
I would. I'd like to call the question. And
Well,
Wait a minute.
Wait.
No, you don't.
No. Well, do you, because the original motion is indeterminate. It just says.
Option one.
Do something.
make a motion for.
Make a motion, option one. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
All right, and nay, mark me nay too, please. All right, with that, any further discussion or we move on with the motion on the table to go ahead and approve this at the option one level citywide?
Second, or motion.
Second.
That motion. It is late, man.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Nay. Did you vote?
I did.
Okay,
I.
all right. 5-1.
5 to
All right, passes 83,000. Thank you.
42.
Oh, where was I?
I think we're on
AB
10.
25-102.
Yeah.
102. All right. Next is Agenda Bill 25-102, application for exemption from SMC 9.36.20 dash WashDOT. My dash WashDOT. For WashDOT. Councilman Benson, will you please read the introduction motion?
Washington State Department of Transportation is requesting a temporary noise exemption from the city of Snoqualmie for 4 non-consecutive nights as part of the NWR South Strategic Pavement Preservation Project. This project involves crack sealing and asphalt patching along various highways within the Northwest region. Within the city of Snoqualmie, the work will take place along SR 202 from milepost 25.42 to 25.76 near Snoqualmie Falls. To complete this work during nighttime hours, WashDOT is seeking relief from the requirement of Snoqualmie Municipal Code, Chapter 9, and a whole lot of numbers and letters by obtaining a noise exemption. The exemption would allow WashDOT contractors to perform night work on 4 non-consecutive nights between March 1st, 2026 and December 31st, 2026. Move to approve the exemption with conditions as explained in the analysis.
Second.
Councilman Washington, second. Discussion. And I'll start off. Did we talk to Salish?
Yes.
And the feedback was?
So for Salish, basically, their peak time is from May, from the Memorial Day up to September Labor Weekend. This is the same time for the window for pavement project, where WashDOT standard. Their comment was they prefer working during the day as the traffic wouldn't impact their work very much. They're aware of the noise level from the project. And also, they confirmed that their point of contact is the same person that's contacting with WashDOT, their director of rooms.
Yeah, they went off menu. Councilor Benson?
The expertise of the Salish Lodge's assessment of traffic not impacting this work, I don't think I concur. I think that traffic is going to affect it. I think I don't know how well we could get WashDOT to accommodate no May to September in that calendar. So none of the drier months to do pavement work. It seems like a non-starter. So it sounds like we're being asked to just not allow WashDOT to fix the road. That's what it sounds like.
Well, Salish was either asked or answered a different question. That being, it's gonna happen at night. What are your preferences of night during this? And they answered in a different way.
Yeah.
I would just encourage WashDOT to continue the communication with Salish at this stage, but we got their input. We can vote tonight. Go ahead.
So as part also of the condition we have on the motion is for WashDOT to communicate directly with them and to ensure proactive communication. So this is one of the conditions that we're proposing for the approval.
Yep. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian.
That was that one. No,
whole.
Finance Administration, we did that one already and we did those.
Committee of the whole.
Yep. And we did S&P. We
Already got the
took the
budget.
financial management off. We were on the community call. Any report from Committee of the Whole? Or any liaison or other reports? All right, Mayor's not here tonight. We wish her and her husband all the best in their current activities. Having no commission or committee liaison reports. Any department reports are there for your reading.
Yeah, I'll just point out that we had 600 kids that participated along the trunk or treat.
Fun.
Nice.
Press is all in there.
All right, there being no further business for the council, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Stay here the rest of the night. Thank you, everyone.